Hello and welcome to UK Versus. Today it's going to be a bit of a noisy one, but it's going to be a very impactful one as we talk about UVS's performance over the course of the year as the 2024 season comes to a close. I am, as always, joined by Richard Plummer, who was watching American football up until about 2 seconds ago.
I don't know what you mean. Slice, slander.
For the new player perspective, we have the best teacher in universes with UVS Hermit Cameron. We get
Hello.
we're going to get an inside look of UVS from a expert of card games and connoisseur of traveling around the world for them with Maindeck Dan.
Do you mean me?
And it wouldn't be a big group meeting if we did not have the main man Ty here to hype up everything and not say anything negative at all, ever.
Let's go! Let's go! Joke's on you. It's about to go down.
No.
Thank you, man. Good to be
It's
on.
great to have you all here. It's been way too long since we had one of these big calls. Not been too long since we had Cameron on. He's becoming almost like a main fixture.
Yeah, I feel like there's something going on behind.
I'm not arguing. I love it.
It's great to have Cameron on, and I mean we have a lot of UK players who are big fan of Cameron's, and it makes his day every time we get to talk about that. So hopefully we can get a few of Cameron's fans to join the UK content creators rather than just constantly following the American ones. But today we're going to be talking universes, UVS as a whole, their performance for the year, mainly over the 4 topics that I discussed with Dan. Well, by discussed, I mean, if you were critiquing UVS, what would you look at? And he went, here's my list. But the chances are we will go off on tangents and diverge, and these 4 groups will get mixed and matched, and we'll talk about things that, although not part of the group, possibly would be affected. And there's been quite a lot of stuff that's happened in the news recently in the last couple of months that could also be quite impactful. So this was a great time to actually come in and talk about it. I was hoping to wait until we got the roadmap for 2025, which usually comes in December, but we're halfway through and we still haven't had one.
I've had a vague roadmap, right, in terms of product release. I think we're still waiting on a proper roadmap of events.
Challenges, events haven't. The challenges, decks, and events haven't been announced.
Yeah, so there's still some stuff, but we do know, some amount of information. But yeah, so obviously it's end of the year, so we want to kind of have a look how things have gone in what's been a bit of a transitional year in UVS games, and sort of rate them and see, what's gone right this year, what's gone wrong, and what we hope improves going forward. Yeah.
So before we get onto the 4 topics that Dan gave me, first of all, would you like to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about how you are with the game for people who are not too aware of who you are, and then we'll also cover one quick topic before we go into the other 4. Let's start off with the teacher himself.
Thank you. Well, as Brett said in my introduction, my name's Cameron Undergust. I'm the UVS Hermit on YouTube, and I think I just fixed my audio bug. So, yay me. There's loud. Half an hour well spent. But, I've been a scout for a long time, going all over the state of Oklahoma, teaching this game, trying to get it into various stores. Finally found some success locally, and I'm currently on hiatus from my locals during the holidays because things are very stressful.
Fair enough.
Yeah. I mean, I'm on here all the time. People should know who I am by now.
Yeah.
And let's move on to Maindeck, who's been represented by Dan, and I believe you guys just got an altered win?
Grand Archive, actually.
Grand Archive, yeah.
Yep, we had a player in the team who won a 313-player tournament in California. Did really well, so really proud of him. I'm Dan. I'm from the channel Maindeck. I am the I'm the owner and the main face of it. I cover a variety of TCGs, but one of my big things is I do try to play every new TCG that comes out, and I pay attention to the industry. And actually, my day job is doing event management and online sales for our LGS. So I'm pretty well established in the industry, connected, and I've done things in the industry at every single level, from player to developer, and everything in between. So my universes experience is I started playing universes right after the Yu Yu Hakusho set. So between Yu Yu Hakusho and the second Soul Calibur set, and then before the big kind of hiatus, and then My Hero Academia and everything, and I played up through the Attack on Titan release here. I think I'm going to have a little bit of an interesting perspective because I'm not quite as much of an old hat as some of the other players. And also, I have done everything I can to get universes to survive in the last couple of years and have failed at our LGS as well. So I've got a lot of things, a lot of perspective, I think, to bring to the table in this conversation.
You are right in that sweet spot though, because Richard and I have been playing less time than you. I think Ty and Cameron have been playing more than you, so you kind of right in the sweet spot.
Yeah.
And of course, don't forget to mention you do run the biggest and best online leagues, which are completely free to play. And the tournament, all the prizing is shipped out. I've won one, and at the last regionals, little Kai was representing with his map throughout regionals, and it was absolutely great to see. And yeah, I think you've got a new whole roster of leagues that have just started.
Yeah, we do one league per like set release for games right now. We're gonna maybe adjust that next year to do more, but we're not totally sure. Just been a matter of making sure I have people who can handle it for me on the team, because when I tried to do everything on my own as well as everything else I do, it was a little too much. But thank you for the shout out for that. I really appreciate that too. Those are people really enjoy those.
Oh, yeah, they're absolutely great, and like I said, completely free to play. You've got nothing to lose from playing them, and they're absolutely amazingly run. You just get to organize it yourself, but there's always kind of like a staff member around if you need them. And
Yep. Yeah,
last,
exactly right.
and last but totally not least, the man, the myth, the legend.
What's up, guys? Tyrell, aka Ty's House of Cards, content creator for YouTube, for actually really for UFS Universes itself. That was one of the main reasons why I even started doing the content online. I've been playing UFS. I played all the games. I was playing. Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh. I played all those. And UFS though, I played since I want to say 2017. So like I was playing where like Platinum series came out, they had Mega Man, all that. Like I got to really get into that by like Battle for Power, and I see her like I mean, Cam was like,
That's about
yeah.
when I got
So
into it too. So
yeah, so that, and then I think they had just came out with Street Fighter, well, the newer version of Street Fighter, and that one was like that, right? Like, I mean, I wasn't too familiar with the game enough to be like, oh, this set sucks, or something like that, right? I just only knew I'm in love with this game. I don't know why, but this game is doing something to me. It's challenging my brain and the types of people I was meeting. And anyways, so I come from that time, so I guess I could be closer to labeled as an old head, maybe mid low old head, right? I mean, I may not be as old as some of the other ones even before that, but I've had a pretty good grip on the game for a while. So
we're certainly no
as
Tim
far
Keith.
yeah, we're definitely not a Tim Cook. We're not, Kevin Brobergs and stuff like that. I'm even going to throw out names that people don't even probably even get to know anymore. Dave Wagner, Ben Shoemaker. These are guys that we saw. I mean,
People whose
you see
character
Phil
cards
Burst.
I have over here.
I was about to say, I
Yeah,
think I have
these
a
are
couple of
these are
those character cards.
yeah. These guys really like the way they saw the game. They just opened my mind. When I played other games, it just couldn't. It just I was like, "Oh my gosh," I'm like seeing the silver line. I'm like, "Oh my gosh," right? It's like a whole new world. So, anyways, I came from that time where there's different type of competition, the way the cards were designed and everything else. And so, I guess coming into here, speaking my observation on the progression of community on card design, everything is I think I could bring to the table as far as just where we come comparison to where we are now and where things could be missing, where things are better at, whatever. So just that kind of perspective.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We did try.
I mean, I think from my perspective, if you know what multiple does, then you're an old head.
I know
That's
what
my
multiple does, and I've been playing the game at the same time as you.
I'm an old head.
Universal.
Wow.
I'm on it. Oh my gosh, what a kawiki dink.
My first
There you
retro
go.
deck was multiple Mina 1. What do you mean?
Oh my
Hey,
gosh.
speaking of
Oh
retro,
my
Red Horizon Blood Omen,
Oh,
back when
this
Jasper still had
shirt?
shirts for their products.
What?
Oh.
Well, that
Oh.
takes us on a nice little spin onto what I was going to talk about before we move into the categories. The Universe's merch shirt there, the surveys that came out this week. Did everybody fill out the survey?
No.
I
Certainly
did,
did.
once I figured
Nope.
out it was there.
I did not.
There's a
Nope.
few hours left to go through it. It's basically UVS asking for feedback for the year, kind of what we're doing here.
Nope.
And when it literally said, "Do you have any more feedback for us?" We're literally going to be talking about this on stream. Come check it out.
I'm trying to. I see Dan. So.
My biggest issue with the questions that were in there is so when you talked about did you buy Origins of Power or Battle for Humanity, and you're like yes, or did you attend the pre-list? Like yes, and like oh cool, what did we do well? It's like oh you did this and this, and then it moves on to the next topic. It's like okay, where's the what can we improve on part? Because that's supposed to come after this bit. You're supposed to ask what you can do better, not just go okay, we did all this good, we're fine. It's like well, and the biggest thing for me, and anyone who knows me knows that this was going to be the biggest for me, is when you say that your store didn't have an event, or when you said that your store basically wasn't one of your area, you're like, okay, where are you located? And gives you all 50 states, and then I don't live in the US as the last option. And it's like, oh, come on. And
It's a US company, it's to be expected.
No, but then you look at Discord where Gary's talking about the fact that he filled the survey in twice, and there's a question that says, "What products did you buy this year?" And if you don't click them all, it gives you different options and different new questions based on how many products you bought this year. Like, cool, they can put all that work into there, but they can't just go, "What region are you from? Where in that region are you from?" and just add that little bit extra rather than going US players and non-US players, which is a divide that we're trying to get rid of, really.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it just depends what they're trying to get out from the survey, right? Like, what is their goal? What from the information? So, but yeah, we'll see if anything happens as a result. I guess.
Hopefully.
I do think it's kind of a weird look. If they really are trying to attract the global market a little more to be so US focused. I mean, I'm an American, and like I would prefer if the card game started by asking. There's like 3 regions, all that they can divide it by pretty easily. EU, Oceania, US. Those are the only real ones where universe is a real thing. So they could just do that to start.
Yeah.
I mean, you say you're a US player, but I mean, you've been to Singapore to play this year. You're going to Europe next year, immediately in January. You're going through Germany and France to play and meet up with companies. So I mean, yeah, you understand how important it is to have that international market take part, which is a great reason why you're here.
Yeah. And for the games that I focus on right now, there's a huge international presence. So it's just weird if that's what they want to do. Let's focus on that a little more,
Well, I'm sure we can get into that as we go into the actual topics. I just wanted to highlight the survey, the fact that the survey is still going on for a few more hours. And if you want to get your voice heard, go fill out the survey and tell UVS what your opinions are, really.
Fill it out.
So, let's move on to a topic I'm sure we're all going to have something very impactful to talk about. The first topic of the 4 that Dan sent me is transparency and communication. How open has universities been with their communication? How transparent have they been about decisions? And how has that communication kind of gone over with the community, and how has that communication been? A great example would be the articles that have come out and from the playtesters and the design teams, and like Bill Stark's articles that were a bit hit and miss in my personal opinion, but they started off very well for who they were designed for.
Who wants to go first on this one? I guess.
Hmm.
I think Ty has something to say.
Yeah, go for it,
I
Ty.
guess since we're not, yeah, I'm just making sure I got the question right. You're asking how transparent they have been, knowing that they start out one way and then we're kind of like
So
this, I guess, right?
the breakdown that Dan sent me is: does the company communicate regularly? Does the company keep players in the dark or informed about decision making? Does the company announce events on time? So basically, how is the community at communicating?
Oh, okay. So that's a very interesting question. I'd say, okay, I'm gonna say that part of them were, I think they were a lot better at communicating, starting out and everything. Um, I think there is some things that they communicate. But if I'm to be honest, if I'm gonna be 100% honest, I would say that there's still a lack in communication. There's a lot of the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing kind of thing, or like we're part of the body, but
Yeah,
this one's saying this one's saying that one, and then lines get crossed. And then once lines get crossed, now it's, oh well, that's not what we meant, but this, and now they got to fix this up. And I do feel like sometimes I could be wrong. But sometimes I feel like when the mess up happens, although there may have been times that they're like, oh, due to this, we fix this. There's some things it doesn't feel like it's a I don't know if sometimes it kind of comes up like they're not really taking responsibility for some of the stuff that like being triggered like, no, we messed up here. Okay, let's bring this clear. I don't know if it's a company thing. I know there's business, you got to look a certain way, but sometimes I think that when decisions are made or things are being changed and stuff, it really it doesn't seem sometimes they don't seem well thought out. It kind of, I mean, they probably are, but then it's like I don't know if somebody just like, okay, we're going to make this decision. We're just going to do this, and we'll deal with it later, right? And it just sometimes I think that can put a I think due to that it has put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths in the community. To be honest with you, I'm not dismissing that they haven't communicated some things with us, though, right? There are things that I believe that they have opened up about or said this or said that. Like you said about the articles, sometimes the articles are just like you're saying something, but it's like I'll be honest, and not to take up any more time. I feel like even with some of the articles, sometimes they're trying to paint a picture like it's, oh, this is this grandest or this great thing or whatever. But then when it comes out or when it's like either something has changed or it really wasn't what you said it was. Almost like you were almost like feeding me something, but it's not really what you said it was going to be. Like due to like even with AOT, some stuff, there's some things that it was like, oh well, this is going to do this.
hmm.
And now we're seeing that it's not doing that. It's actually doing the opposite of what you said it was going to do. So I'll stop there and give it to somebody else.
Ty, can I have you not stop there and actually give me a good just for me, the audience, for everyone? What's a good example of you kind of even mentioned AOT there at the end of what you're talking about at the end though of something that they kind of explained as this is why we're doing this and then it didn't work that way.
Okay, so oof. Okay.
Well,
So
just one is fine. You
I'm,
only
It's
need
so
one.
it's so hard
I'm
for
trying to
Ty to be
be
negative.
I know. I'm gonna
He-
make them though.
I, okay. If I'm to be, oh gosh, all right, I'm gonna just say it. I'm
Do
gonna
it.
say it.
Let's go.
There's many things I can say. All right, I'll use this. It's really it was a choose between these two. But if I'm to say about, um, I'm gonna go with was it challenge? Were they challenge? No, not a challenger decks.
Clash.
The
Flash
flash
decks?
decks.
Clash decks.
Yeah.
I'll go
Flash
with
decks?
I'm gonna go with the Clash decks. Even though there's some, we're probably gonna get into the other one later on. So I'm gonna say at least the Clash decks. I believe the Clash decks they wanted to do something with it, and they said that this is what it was meant to do. This is what it's going to do. It's going to get people to play. Blah blah blah. Nobody really wanted to buy those things. One, I'm gonna say it. Forgive me if they're watching this. I'm gonna just tell y'all, they were trash. They were terrible. They were terrible. I'm sorry, they were terrible because they're not. They're not. It wasn't getting anybody to play. If anything, once even if anybody that bought the product would look at it and go, "Oh, okay." And even if the excitement was there starting out, "Oh, this is something to get excited about," but then they're like, "Okay, but this character isn't doing nothing. You'll have to buy this, and you have to buy this." It used to be more so of you can buy a clash deck and at least feel like you can do something with the clash deck, right? Like you can try to, not that you're gonna dominate, but you can feel like you can do something. Now they're saying that it was
At
to
least play the
introduce
game.
people. Yeah, it said that it was released because it was to introduce new players, and although I believe that it had those elements, sure, but unfortunately, it was more like a demo deck. So because
Yeah.
it was more like a demo deck, why would anybody really want to spend $25 on a demo deck that didn't get you anywhere? You're going to wind up changing the character anyway. You're going to still have to buy a product here. You're going to be. It just did not get. Like I said, it painted this way, like this is what this is going to do, and it should get more people in and everything, and it did not get more people in. If
Mm.
anything, I'd even argue and say that it turned some. I'm not saying it didn't affect some people, but I would say that it detoured some people. Now,
Mhm.
that's just my observation. That's what I've also experienced. Maybe somebody has something different.
So let me
Yeah.
let me jump in here because I definitely want to kind of explore where you're going at this, but I want to make sure we bring the conversation to the communication side of things
Absolutely.
specifically about this too. So, Ty, I think one thing you said really resonated with me as far as my perception, my experience of the company. You mentioned early on this idea that the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and
Yeah.
I think when it comes to communication in a card game, in the TCG space, it's really important that your communication matches your action all
Mhm.
the time. What you say is what happens, and then if
Yes.
something goes wrong, what you say is the correction to that, and
Yes.
that it's and most importantly too that reads the room well. It matches the what needs to happen. Not that you say one thing and then everyone's like, why on earth would you have ever even thought to say that? That makes no
Mm.
sense. That's terrible. Um, and I feel like fairly frequently this year. And as you mentioned, it's maybe Brett mentions it's a transition year. I guess I do
Mhm.
feel like they've had a number of transition years so far, and I kind of wonder when the transition years stop and we transition into not transitioning anymore. But there certainly are changes that have been happening in UVS games throughout the past years, and I get when there's some sort of a disconnect between what someone's saying and what someone's doing. And in particular, when it comes to the Clash decks, what we're naming the product, what the goal of the product is, who we're selling the
Yeah.
product to, how we're advertising the product. And I think the biggest problem, if we're going to talk about the Clash decks, is actually a little. I mean, I think you could put it under the communication umbrella to some degree, but it's a little less about that and more so about how marketing in general just why
Yes.
did we name this the
Yes.
same thing as the previous Clash decks, but we
Correct.
made it an enhanced demo deck? Uh,
That's yes.
I think there are a lot of questions that you can ask actually about the Clash deck. Why is there a
Absolutely.
card that spends momentum, but there's no momentum generation or whatever?
Right.
Like,
Absolutely.
or yeah, I don't know. There was some weird stuff in there, but ultimately, my perception of the communication has been a lot of this just disconnect that I felt
Yes.
throughout the year. There have been some bright moments of communication. I think one
Yeah.
thing they did really, really well was they put out that exciting trailer of all the IPs coming next year. That was
Yes.
great. Like,
Yes.
awesome. That was
Yes.
exactly what people wanted to see. And
Yeah.
and I'll even say that was timed well. That was pretty far
Yeah.
out from the next year. And it was a really good, like, oh, hey, that's really cool. Maybe I should start looking at this game rather than it being kind of like at the last minute, like, for example, some of their tournament details have been and things. There's some things that have felt like this really needed to happen a lot sooner than it did now. And as you mentioned right at the start, you guys mentioned we don't have the full roadmap for the next year. That's okay. Like every TCG kind of puts out schedules at different times, but I'm going to point out that most TCGs do have a lot of their roadmap out for the next year.
Mm.
Release dates for events, event dates for major events, or at least event months or location, like vague locations. You can start to plan something.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like a lot of the time there's just a lot of seats of pants are piloting the crafts right now, and like, it feels like we really need someone to get it, just rope everything together and be like, all right, here's everything, here's when this needs to be communicated by, we lock all this stuff in and we release the communication then, and not, oh hey, we just finally figured this thing out, I guess let's go ahead and mention it or something. Right, I think I
Yeah.
felt a little bit too much of that happening this year personally.
Just to quickly go
Yeah.
back to the ad that you were talking about that they put out, which was an absolute banger of a song as well.
Mhm.
The person that actually did the song for that was sent a box of Origins of Power, and they actually did a unboxing for it. Their channel's Room and Board. Go check it out, and he talks about like the song and the fact that he actually put it out on there, and it's really really cool to see. I think UVS have been promoting it as well, which is great for them to see as well. But I absolutely love that song, and I just wanted to put it in there that he did an absolutely great job with that
Mhm.
absolute banger of a song.
Yeah, it was a great ad.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I'd echo a lot of what you guys have said. So, like, the first thing you said, Ty, was the first thing that came to my mind was it was better, but there's still a shit ton. Like, there's a lot of room for improvement, right?
Yeah.
Like, even go back to the start of the year, the Creator Summit. Obviously, that came with some amount of baggage, but it was a really good step in the right direction in terms of trying to help communication, from them through us, and hopefully have us kind of not be sort of talking heads for them, but to assist them in their sort of, work with them off on that communication side, right? I feel like and that has continued, right? I think that's been good in terms of like the reveal seasons and stuff. Like, it's again sometimes a little up and down, a little kind of last minute, but in general, better than it's previously been. Still could be better, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah, there is certainly, I do feel that disconnect sometimes, and like, not to get all corporate speak, but like just having like a product manager, or like just a bloody like a scrum master type thing, just
Yeah.
someone who's meshing everything together and making sure everything does have that cohesive messaging, timing, everything's running to schedule, right? Obviously, there are hiccups, but this is the person who's there to like, okay, manage all that sort of shite.
Like a communications director.
Yeah, but almost not even just on a communication side of it, just managing it almost like as a project, like, but at a company level. I don't know, like, obviously, I don't know their sort of corporate company structure in terms of how that all sits together, and frankly, it's sort of none of my business really. But it does feel like sometimes, yeah, like, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's saying. Like I say, it's been better, and like, I think the articles and communication has been sometimes hit and miss. Like, I really liked the OP stuff that Josh and Levi put out, and it was a great start. And it hasn't really been followed up on too much in terms of the future plans and schedules for next year. It's felt a bit too much sometimes. They're in the sort of firefighting mode, right? And that's, again, you never get things done productively or well when you're in firefighting mode. And they need to somehow buy themselves that time to get into we're working ahead of ourselves mode, right? Rather than that, I'm just putting out fires, I'm doing everything on the seat of my pants. I need to be like, okay, we've got Critical Role coming out in March, is it? Like, they should have like their plan for release season and everything sort of done now, working out who's doing what, working out who they want to do box openings for, and make sure all that's sort of sent out on time so they can have them to do it within that time frame, and have that almost like 3, 4, 5, 6 months ahead of time, so they're not having to do it like, right, it's Monday, we need to do reveals on Friday. Shit, I better send some stuff out, right? It needs to. They need to sort of get ahead of the game from that perspective, from that organizational stuff.
Especially
So,
dealing with international content creators like ourselves and the Dobbers, we're
Hmm.
not getting product like the Star Trek stuff. And as much as we love the product UVS send us, don't get us wrong, we appreciate being part of the product revealings. If we're not getting it till a week after the product's released,
Yeah.
it's a lot harder to generate the kind of hype because the product's already out.
Yeah, it's like we're not getting the benefit from sending it to us, right? In terms of that marketing side of it, right? It's not just we get some freebies, cool, hey yo. It's they're sending it to us because it's a marketing expense. You know, we're helping sort of generate hype for the game, and if we're getting it 2 weeks after release, well, then they're not getting any value from that, right?
To be fair, the Origins of Power box we got, that wasn't UVS's fault. It was like sat in California for a week because Wazzy got his on time. So I think that was just an issue. But yeah, it should be arriving a bit sooner so we can produce higher quality content that we can spend more time editing rather than just quick unboxing because we have to get this out in 2 days.
And I know Cam, you're gonna get ready to speak. I just real quick, that was another thing like that kind of community. Like, okay, and the emails and everything when they do communicate, once they finally communicate, there's I think there was a couple of times that there was a misunderstanding of what the email was saying. So then it caused people to operate certain ways and do certain things. And now, especially when it's like thrown out that everybody has access to this and do this, and then somebody goes and puts everything out. Now it's like, oh, well, what do we do, right? Like, and the hardest part, and just to y'all's point, there's a lot of times that I've gotten the product after the release, so it's like I mean, I could still and it's not that I'm still not. It's like there's still stuff I have to still catch up on that I'm gonna do because I was given it, and then so it's not like I'm just trying to get this up, but it's like when I don't get it at a decent time, or a confirmation like, hey, this is being sent out by this, so I can prepare. By the time it comes out, I'm already knocking out some other stuff. I mean, there's a lot of other things that I'm handling, and to not do it at a decent time, um, I don't want to be like, well, I got it too late now, so oh well. But it ends up putting you in that mindset because it sets you back, right? It sets you back on. I like how a lot of times I did my recordings. Sometimes I would already pre-record it because I'm already like I'm ahead. So now I got that done. Now I can go do what I need to do.
Yeah.
When I don't have
And
it
like,
at the time, sorry,
this isn't
I
your
don't have
day
the
job,
turnaround
right?
time all the time.
Yeah, like it's not your day job. Like this isn't what you get paid to do, right? And
Yeah.
you've got what you do. You've got obviously the charitable stuff you do. You're a dad, like we don't have the time just to say to drop everything. Okay, something's turned on my doorstep. I best do this now. It's like, well, no, I've got other shit to do.
Yeah, and I always want to try to produce the best quality I can because that's how I operate. But
Yeah.
if I can't, I don't want to give anybody mediocre, right? That's just not me. I'm gonna do the best I can, but it's like I can't give you what you really want, or even not even what you want, but what I know I can produce because I didn't get things in a decent time, So
Yeah.
anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to take up any extra time.
No,
I just wanted
I
to
get completely
point
get where
that.
you're coming from, Tam. Ty, not Tam. Ty, because with the soul leveling like stuff, we spent an hour and a half talking about the cards, and then before that, I spent like 2 days working on a portal effect, and then I spent a day editing it, putting glitch effect transitions between each of the cards we were talking about. And I put so much work into that video. And it's like, I get what you say. You don't want to do mediocrity. You want to generate as much hype as you can. You want to put out the best quality product you can. The more time you have to play with it, the better you can do. But we will know.
Yeah, I mean, I spent 3 weeks on my Klingon cosplay.
That still cracked me up when I saw it. I loved that. That was great.
Oh my gosh.
Just wait till I shave my head and show up shirtless for Critical Role with Grog.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I guess Cam, what were your thoughts on the whole
Go ahead, Cam. Sorry.
communication?
No, that's fine. I agree with a lot of that. I will say my issues with communication have mainly been kind of like what you said, sometimes what they say doesn't always feel like what they're doing. Like,
Mm.
I'm sure all of us have had feelings about the early Bill Stark articles talking about how the game's going to be a little simpler and, we're going to narrow this and we're going to make it easier for people to pick up, which, as someone who teaches the game and had to teach himself how to play several years ago when it was even more difficult, I was actually okay with. Let's simplify some things to make my job easier. But then they go and release Attack on Titan with like 6 new things to learn about. And then with every single product release, we've had at least 1 to 2 things brand new that you have to now pick up. And as a newer player, when every product release has like so much more to learn on, if you're just
Mm.
grasping the basics, it can be a little overwhelming. So whenever
Yep.
something new pops up, one of my locals would be like, "Simple, right?" Just like, I know what he said. I understand what he said, but it definitely did have that feel of, we're going to simplify this while making this more complicated. And
Yeah.
I like that because I like having that mental challenge, but I see where the challenge comes from for newer players. So that kind of communication is kind of rough. One thing I will give them points for is the monthly Ben and Errata articles.
Yes.
Coming from old
Yeah.
Jasco, who didn't tell you jack
That's
until
true.
like the day it was banned. Um, even when they have months where they don't ban or errata anything, they say, "Hey, look, we're still looking at things. We're still gathering data." They still try to keep
Yep.
that very transparent and open. Um,
I will give them that. Yes, you are correct on that.
yeah, and like I said, the articles and aside from the newsletter always showing up in my spam for some reason, even though I've told my email, "Hey, I need to see this every week." Um, those recap articles are pretty good. I will say one thing that they could do, and when the uh, Creator Summit happened, I had this idea of using content creators, kind of like what Richard said, not necessarily as like spokespeople. Use us as a resource that we can also help get the word out if they don't have like someone who can just hang on, be dedicated to this, be like, "Hey, here's like a newsletter, guys. If you guys can cover some of this stuff for us, help us out, spread the word." We could be kind of used as a resource like that as well. And it would give not only us more to do and more content to make, but we could also ask questions beforehand and say, "Hey, can we get some clarification on this?" So we're putting out the right information.
Yeah.
I think it was with the solo leveling stuff when we were talking about the skill tree. I actually put in a request. It's like, "Hey, can I get confirmation on whether or not this is going to be a solo leveling exclusive thing?" Because before I make my video, I want to be able to put out saying, "Hey, this is only going to be for solo leveling, or this is something that you're going to need to know going forward." And I put that email in the day we got the reveals sent to us. I still have not heard back from them.
Oh. Okay.
So I haven't made my Hermit School video on how skill trees work because I want to make sure that I'm putting out the right information the first time so that I can help
Mhm.
ease, especially newer players, because that's what I'm more geared towards in my content. I want to make sure that I'm making it as easy for new players to understand and grasp as possible. And sometimes they just don't word things like that. Like when we had the breakdown of communication with Battle for Humanity, where the first Blitz card said you had to activate it, but the uh, message introducing Blitz said it was optional. So some of that quality control stuff, I mean, hey, we could even help out with that too. If they're like, "Hey, we just need to send this to someone to spot check anything that we might be missing. Is there a way that we could, word this better for newer players? You guys as players and content creators can help us with that." I'd be open to doing that. Hell, I've even told the design team, if you need me to break some cards for you, send me an NDA and a list of 10 things you want me to make absolutely horrible, and I'll break some stuff for you to find out what the weak points are. I mean, we can be used as a resource.
Cameron, that I think that proposal to have at least trusted content creators help with things like that has been brought up a lot, and it
Uh,
doesn't ever happen.
It
Um,
doesn't.
and it's remarkable too because it's actually it's a joke that gets told a lot about the company, but it feels like it's always 2 steps forward, 1 steps back with them. It's very difficult to have a year where you can just go, man, we're on all cylinders this year. We just can always point to all these like, oh, why'd they do that? Why'd they say that? Why did they get rid of the webcam events? Why did they do the mental load article the way they did it? Why did they do Attack on Titan 1 and 2 so differently? There's just a host of these things you can point to. You can point to a bunch of really good things too. Like I'm not saying that they don't exist, but it's wild to me how even just like quality control on cards, there's like how did this get through? There's some weird things like attacks that I think it was Attacker Foundation that looked like an action or something. It had a whole thing like that, like and the numbers being wrong and weird, and that happens in every
Yep.
card game, right? But it's just that it piles on to a pretty large pile. Like we try to help, we've all offered, like, can we help you with that? And it's a radio silence response all of the time. It's never even a no or anything. I just never hear anything back every time I try to assist with that. I think it all does go into communication and just how they're putting this out and how they're talking to their audience, but also, like you guys were saying, how they're communicating with the content creators who are literally like I may be a little more checked out than some of you guys, but you guys are out there like, I want to promote this game, I want to grow this game, I want to help this game. And it always feels a little bit like they don't want you to, or at least don't want you to do it in the best way they can.
I got to touch on this one. This is a little soft spot for me. And those of y'all that know me know I've been around for quite some time, and that kind of thing is that kind of stuff can get people into a burnout mode, right? Like I'm putting so much behind, and then you probably already know because there's some things already even you're probably feeling too. There's just certain times that you put so much into something and you can only extend your hand to how long before before it's like, okay, if you don't grab my hand, I'm just gonna go and extend it somewhere else, right?
Yeah.
And I don't mean that disrespectful. I'm just saying it just there are like you just said, when somebody's willing to put that kind of energy behind and they're hyped up, you grab those. You work with those type of individuals, right? And especially if they're passionate. And if they're passionate about it, you can cultivate that. You can help guide that too. But if you're like, oh well, people that are passionate don't get things done, that's first off, that's not even correct. That's not even I don't I've actually heard people say stuff like that. I'm like, no, you're missing it. So, anyways, I'm just saying, not to take up time, but just that particular thing, when putting yourself out there like that, and people, you get the radio silence or you don't get the response enough or at all, it gets you to the point where you're like, all right, I'm done. I don't why what do I need to do with this for, right? So, anyways, go ahead.
So
I mean, it's just like any relationship, right? It doesn't like any sort of relationship, whether that's business, professional, personal, like whatever it is, requires two-way communication.
Yep.
And if that doesn't exist, then that relationship doesn't fundamentally work.
So since we're talking about UVS as a whole, not just universes, and we're talking about transparency and communication, I have a question for the four of you. When did Star Trek Star Realms release?
Gen Con, I think.
Look, I only knew it
Someone
was
who
coming out. I just didn't know
know
when it was.
about it until you said something, Brett.
I actually, yep. I
had
didn't
no
even.
idea.
I
I'd
didn't
say
know until.
October.
It came out at the end of September, early October this year, and
Oh,
there was no.
I thought they had it for sale at Gen Con.
I think they were previewing it at
It might have
Gen
been
Con.
like
Now
a
you could have
pre-sale
picked up
thing.
early
Okay.
copies of it at Gen Con, but it was.
Well, it looked like that.
Yeah.
Point
I
proven,
mean,
though.
Yeah, but it's a great game, and I've been like talking with people on Reddit about it, and the Star
At Star Realms.
Realms community
I
are
love
kind
Star
of like
Realms.
the Star Wars community are a little bit iffy on it because it is just essentially a reskinning of the first set, but with erratas and more balancing in place. But there was no advertising around the
No,
release.
nothing.
There was no,
Nothing.
they didn't really say anything about this game go out, and it was
I
one of the
love
like
Star
things
Realms.
that hit me in the head as it got closer to Christmas. I was like, oh, it's October. This game's released now. I need to track it down. I want to get one for my mother-in-law because she's a massive gamer and Star Trek fan. and I got one for myself, and I absolutely loved it. And I've done some videos on it and how to play, and it's a really good game. Like you said, it's Star Realms. It's been around for ages, but UVS seems to have been oddly quieter about it, and it seems to be like they have this kind of wave effect of some products they'll go all out for with the advertising, like Attack on Titan, which got the trailers and the star treatment, and then you got Star Trek, where they got where you got the cosplayers
It's
coming
mediocre.
into it, and you got
It's
all
just
this.
mediocre.
Yeah, and then you got Soul Leveling, which was here's the cards, you've got a week to do it. Whereas like with the lower decks, we got 2.5 weeks and more stuff, and it just seems to be like this kind of wave of
Let's
enthusiasm.
kind of get it out the way.
Yeah, and it's
It
like
almost feels like they got. Let's get this done.
I was really hyped that I was expecting Soul Leveling to get something in 2026 as a set or something similar to Critical Role, but the way the pre-releases, the reveals were handled compared to the other stuff, my head went, I don't think they've got a set for it. I think this is just all we're getting because of the kind of enthusiasm. Now, that isn't anything against Matt. I love Matt. Matt is absolutely amazing. Great hire.
Mhm.
Has done so much for the company. Great for communication. I know, like you're saying, Cam, you've had some issues with communication, but I messaged Matt directly, going, "Can I clarify if he can level up more than once per turn?" Because his response doesn't say once per turn, and he went, "Let me check." Came back, went, "No, it's only once per turn. It's only at the start." And he immediately got back to me, going, "No, you can only level up once per turn." And maybe
Well, I think part of that is like why you might
Once
have gotten a
your turn.
response and I didn't. It might have been like some people just don't know some things. Like maybe he wouldn't have the answer to that and he'd have to go to someone else, but maybe they'd be like, "Oh, because of something we're doing next year or in 2026 that we aren't ready to talk about yet, we don't want to give
Right.
spoilers to what
yeah,
could be happening." And that kind of planning can also lock up some of these, wheels with red
Yeah.
tape as, oh, we don't want to tell you about this because then you could assume like Critical Role might have a level up system, or maybe there's another character somewhere that has this level up system.
they could just
So they
give
don't
you
want to
a
tell you, oh, this is going to be a future
yeah.
thing because they maybe it's something they can't talk about legally because of like the proprietors of the IP or something like that. So there is a lot of red tape there. So maybe that's part of an issue. But if so, at least let me know. Hey, I can't confirm that yet, but I will let you know.
Yeah.
Cameron, I want to make sure that you brought up a really important thing that we haven't mentioned at all yet so far. But one thing that we hear a lot from UVS games, at least we did at the summit and things, we know that there's a lot of licensing issues that can come up and get in the way
Yeah.
with them doing what I think we or the audience of the game would perceive as the optimal way to do things, the optimal way to advertise, the optimal way to send out spoilers, etc. So I want to make sure that we have said we recognize that that is something that does come up and does cause issues. But I also want to caution against using that as an excuse to excuse away everything, right? Because
Oh, yeah.
I think there will that stop things from being done optimally sometimes, sure, but I still believe that the level of communication, the type of communication, the way content creators are worked with specifically, all of those things are things that even given licensing agreements that are very strict can be done better in some way. And I think there's actually a fair amount of room for improvement. And this is just coming from my perspective, working with other card games. Some are their own IPs, some are not. Some are licensed IPs as well. And I don't always see the same types of restrictions and the same uh fumbled balls as I do with UVS, and I know that they can do better.
Well, you weren't at the summit, Cameron, but when we were there, they were talking about stuff you wanted to see, and one of the questions I asked Bill directly was, "Will Reversal come back?" And he gave me essentially the blanket answer you were looking for of nothing's off the table. We're always looking for new ways to make blocking more interesting and stuff like that. And that's the kind of answer you were just looking for. As a case of you don't need to tell me it is or isn't. Just say, "Oh, it's not off the table. It may come back. Come in the future." Just even if it's a
Or even
nonsense.
if like I can't tell you now, I'll let you know later.
Yeah,
Just get back
exactly.
to me with something. Don't leave me on red.
Something.
Yep.
Yeah. So I guess, we've obviously gone a little tangential sometimes, but should we move on to the next subject?
Do I not get to say my piece?
Oh,
No,
no, you're just the
it's
host.
our show now.
Yeah.
So you've all kind of definitely hit the nails on the head. Communication and transparency this year has been a lot better than previous years. My perfect example to look at is the delays with class reunion in the EU, where we
I
got.
forgot about that.
I never forget when it comes to the
Not
EU.
this year, didn't it?
Yeah, we got a statement from UVS essentially after everybody already knew. Then, when it came to the delays for girl power, we got the stars telling us quite quickly, and UVS told us quite quickly. But it wasn't. It was still very close to release. And then with the Tekken 8 stuff, it was very quick, it was very direct, and it was immediate. As soon as they knew, and they knew when the new date was going to be, it was in, and it was like, okay, Tekken 8's delayed. Tekken 8's going to come out on this date in EU and Oceania, and NA, unfortunately, you're going to have to wait, and it's going to be here. And that, to me, was a great progression of them going, the players don't care if something's delayed, as long as we let them know it's going to be delayed. They only get angry if we try and hide it.
Yeah.
With the articles, like you said, a lot of the articles, like the French vanilla and vanilla articles, the Blitz and enhanced articles, they weren't written for us. They weren't written for the established players. We're going to be playing it either way. It was for industry professionals. It was for new players. It was people that were coming in from IPs, looking at the game and going, "Oh, is this game hard to learn?" And they immediately get hit by an article from Bill going, "We're making this game easier to learn." Great, boom, perfect. But then you get things like the NAOP article, where the most recent regional had a deck breakdown, had character breakdown, had card breakdown, what set they were from. And right at the end it goes, and I'm now working on my Oceania article. I'm like, cool, I cannot wait to see how much information you can get from a 12-person event that if you put this much detail in. And not to have a go at Will Howard or the playtesters and their deck choices. I've done that in a video already, and I did pre-warn some of them that I was going to be doing that. But EU and Oceania got a few decks selected, and they were talking about the decks. And compared to what we got for the NA, it didn't feel enough, especially after at the end of the article, Bill put that he was working on the next article. To me, that just felt like I wanted the same. I wanted a breakdown. I wanted to go, the fact that we had a foundationless mimic, make it again. The fact that we had a couple of 4-check tribal decks get really high up, one of which was some crazy person on Dabby 1 just running four checks all the way down. It was a real shame to see that.
The impact Midoriya had on that meta, because he was obviously new, right? The Bakugo dominance, things like that. But yeah, it was just a bit.
As an IP holder, if
Phoned in.
as an IP holder, if I'd seen Attack on Titan getting all this love, and then the first event that Midoriya was legal at had no information on it, if the first event that Tekken 8 had one there, it's like there's no talking about the promos or the Tekken 8 cards or the Izuku Midoriya on the move cards, and the fact he was the most represented character but yet didn't top. So were the EU community ready for it, or was it just that he was overhyped? There was so much potential there that highlights the new IPs, the new products of the game, and it just wasn't utilized. And I think if I had to sum up the transparency and communication of the year, there's been a lot of missed opportunities to make these articles and make this stuff a lot better. And as much as I love you, Bill, a lot of your articles seem like you're talking at us, not talking to us.
And I mean, and not to, I don't want to, because I know you got other subjects, so I don't want to go too deep. But when you were just talking about, I think you said, when you're talking about IP, this might be something you maybe already get ready to talk about. One of the things, it was like you were talking about missed opportunities. I feel like some of the IPs that they had released where they could have probably, and this might be a design thing, I don't know. I'm trying to be as respectful as I can, but I feel like some of the IPs were still a miss. I think that there's certain things with certain characters, there's certain things with power level that they could have done better with, which would not probably, I'm gonna say it would have sold the product better. But because you only had what 3 characters over here and 2 characters over here, and then out of like 18 characters, right? There's somehow I don't know how that ends up happening. So, but I feel like with the IP, sometimes we miss it with these IPs. Like solo leveling is one of them that I'm really hoping isn't a miss. But more and more I look at it, and the more and more I see it, I'm trying my best. I'm not trying to disrespect nobody, but if I'm just as a player, if somebody's looking at this and knowing the format, even with me not even being able to play as often, the character still feels like it's missing. Like it's too slow compared to what I'm saying. But I could be wrong.
Well, that's actually a
Yeah.
great tangent into what the next topic is, which is, does UVS make player first decisions? So let me go to
I won't
my
go first. I won't go first.
let me get my lovely Dan breakdown for this. So, does the company make decisions that will benefit players over strict profit? Does the company respond to player feedback in a positive manner? When the company screws up, do they own and fix it? So essentially, is the company for the players, or is it for the industry? Is how I'm reading
I won't say anything yet.
that. You gotta prepare yourself and like get some.
I gotta make sure I say the right thing.
I'll-
Dan look like he getting ready to go.
I'll lay some foundation. I'll just throw some
There we
foundational
go.
thoughts
There
out
you go.
there, and then you guys can just build off.
Dan's
of
gonna
that.
take a
I'll
build
probably
turn
shut up for a
before
while.
tie attacks.
Dan about to go in.
No, I'm just building 5 and passing. Okay, we're good. So I think this is a complicated one to approach UVS from, because I feel like UVS Games has almost a dual two kind of worlds that they live
Yep.
in. I think
Yep.
I think UVS Games operates very much like, and I think actually I'm going to steal some words from Tim Keefe in our content creator chat, but I think they operate very much like they are a large TCG publisher, and I think it goes all the way down to like the amount of people working there and everything. But they operate on an enterprise level almost, and often they communicate with people, and they make decisions as if I think they are a lot bigger than they are. In the reality of the player base and customer base is that they are, they're not a top 5 TCG. They're in, depending on when they release a product or what products they release, they probably fluctuate between top 15 and top 10, but not ever really breaking past, I would guess, 9 or 8, 7 on the really best release ever or something, maybe. As far as like, that's just sales,
serious.
right? But when we talk about player quantities for tournaments, they are very similar to the player quantities in a lot of other smaller TCGs. I look at games like Grand Archives. Star Wars Unlimited beats them. I think Grand Archive is sometimes beating them now too. I think they're more than games like Force of Will, more than games like they're probably similar to games like Cardfight right now. I think, as far as just like average player attendance on larger tournaments, but not in Japan. Japan Cardfight absolutely destroys.
Yeah, so I think even Cardfight's still up there.
In like the US, right? In like the US,
Yeah.
it's probably, I don't know, give or take. That's maybe the rough echelon to put them in. And when you're operating on that level of players, where you're looking at your big tournaments, are going to be in the couple hundred. 300 if really good. They did do a 400 nationals right at one point last year or something. Yeah. I think was that. They did get that in, but that was like the big event, right? That was happening.
Yep.
And when you're at that level, you are not at the size where you're beyond talking directly to your players and communicating directly to your players. You have a small enough base where you can afford to be a little more agile. You can afford to be a little more just in tune with what the general player base wants, because the player base isn't big enough where they're so disparate in their opinions on things that you can't possibly please everyone and everything's going to go wrong. You can actually please a lot of people. There's not everyone. It's never possible to please everyone, but there are a lot of decisions that can be made that are player forward. And I feel like sometimes that this goes back to what was said of the communication discussion, but there's a lot of missed opportunities just to be able to kind of land the plane smoothly. I think about one of the big ones was the canceling webcam tournaments. What a weird decision to make going into the year when that was something where, with a game of this size, a lot of players were relying on that in order to play the game. Not, I mean, a percentage that you don't just want to cut out. Were relying on that as their main interaction for the game, and there are reasons for everything happening, but I think that's one of several decisions that I was like, that just I just
So
don't
to just
get
interrupt
operating
like
like
mid
that.
round just there, because I think we've touched this a couple of times. I don't think there was much of a choice there.
Yeah.
If your biggest webcam player, the player that's won 90% of events, is found to be undeniably cheating and then gets banned with a ability to appeal it in 2 years, can you really keep webcam events going? Can you really have prizing and put money and time and have people playing in them when the person that won the majority of them was able to go undetected but suspicious, but had suspicion for them for a very long time?
Can you really keep operating banks when someone robs them? Sometimes I don't know. I think that's ridiculous. I think you
Essentially,
absolutely can keep
gonna-
running them, and you just say, "Look, we just
Mm.
punished this guy. You can't do this. We're gonna catch you." Why,
Yeah.
why do they catch him the first time and they go, "Well, then we're closing up shop. We're not doing it anymore." I think that's kind of insane. I think you absolutely can keep doing it.
I
and
think,
I don't. Oh,
but not
go.
high
Sorry,
stakes.
Richard.
Sorry.
Sorry, Richard. My bad.
I was gonna say, I
No.
think
Go ahead.
keep doing them, right? I think you can keep having them as, like, the webcam Wednesday, I think, was a great for people without locals. I think you can have fun tournaments. I just think webcam in general probably shouldn't be for stakes. Obviously, that was different during COVID because it wasn't like an option, stuff like that. And I think sometimes with like the nationals early on, with like the EU ones and the OCE ones, where they couldn't do it in person for whatever reason. They had to do it in webcam because of time constraints or TO constraints, whatever. Fine, but I just think webcam is not a place for high stakes tournaments. But I think that doesn't mean you don't do tournaments at all. I think you can have as many sort of, like, those regionals where they were just there for effectively qualifying points and getting some practice and stuff. I think that was totally fine. Again, the stakes were just low.
So
Um,
should it be going back to the communication stuff of, rather than just saying webcam's dead, mean we're going to stop it for now. We'll keep you updated like monthly as to where we are with webcam, but we will bring it back in some way once we figure out how to have higher standards.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
Cam.
Sure.
Okay. I was gonna say, Cam, go ahead. You go for it. I'll end it with, because there. I'm glad y'all are touching on this, because there's something that I'm gonna bring up. It comes back. Actually, it's gonna come back and bring everything that we were talking about before, even up to that. So go ahead. Sorry.
All right, well, I'll start the middle off here then. I do think in many ways that they are. I mean, obviously they're a company; they have to focus on profits at some point, or else they're going to go under. But I do think that they are more for the players, especially with some of the decisions they've made, like especially with the IPs. I mean, these are some really cool IPs that one a lot of people have been asking for. So it's kind of hard to say, okay, you've asked for this, and now we're going to give you this, but we're not for the players. But something, and I've had this floating around in my head since your video about the regional articles, Brett. I think something that could help with like what's the word I'm looking for? I just lost my word. But basically, to make the articles better is if they had boots on the ground in those regions. If they had like a local representative in like the EU, or someone who could go to these, travel around to these different areas where there are players and be like, hey, what are you guys enjoying about the game? What's something that we as the company can improve on? Go to these big regionals and watch, and someone who knows the game to say, hey, this is what I've seen here locally as the meta in the EU has shifted. This is how these players think as opposed to the US players. Same with OCE. I know they're a smaller region, but if you give them that same treatment of, hey, we've got someone there, boots on the ground, who understands the game and understands, more importantly, the people here, and kind of sees how the locality evolves. You can get much more in depth with those things instead of just having like someone from the company out here, like Bill, fly out and then just report what he sees. That's just what he sees. And he might not be looking for things that a local who's steeped in the culture of that area with the game would understand more. Like you said in your video, we in the EU, you guys think differently than us. You play the game differently than us here in the US. And that's shown off in the decks that are chosen, the characters, the decisions that are made. So, in order to compare and contrast that, we would need the opinion of someone who's steeped in the game over there, who knows the player base, travels to the tournaments in Europe and in the UK and all of that, and who has a broader understanding of how the game is impacted by that locality. And I think that would make for much richer content coming from the company, and it'd pay much greater respect to those regions and those regions' players.
Crazy idea. What about
Okay.
if UVS Games were to reach out to, say, a Zane or a Hardiman or someone and say, hey, guy, if we give you X product, will you write a little article for our website of summarizing your experiences at Nationals so we can put it up there?
And maybe that's another way
So-
that you can use content creators as a resource.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna touch on this one. This
So
is
before you go on your like big OTK kill turn, I did interrupt Dan mid his segment. So
my bad, my bad.
let's let Dan finish his turn, then we'll get onto your.
Oh yeah.
I am super excited to hear what Ty says. So I'm gonna do a really quick wrap up that I didn't want to get too bogged down on just the one webcam thing, but the main thing I wanted to point out was just that there are a lot of decisions that I think they're very strange decisions when you think about what the players actually want, and it never made sense to me that they would announce things like closing worlds and not having the side event where they needed Sean to come in and actually save that. Like that's another example of one of these where it's like just like why it was like there was no players there were no players there who were there to be like, I don't want that, don't do that. Like, and when you make decisions like that, it feels so much more like just a gray organization, a gray blob of an organization, just kind of like trying to make decisions, take profit in, spend money, take more profit in, and less about we're going to host a TCG and do the things that the TCG players want to do in this. I think there are definitely examples of great things they've done, and definitely again examples of these strange decisions, missed opportunities, and things where I think the players didn't feel like the players were being served by that decision as much as the company was just kind of doing a company thing. So Ty, take it away.
Oh man, y'all have said so much, and they're all great. So first answering Brett, I think I want to say it's a little bit of both. That I think they cater to both. I would say that it kind of seems like sometimes, although the thought of the players are in mind at starting out, maybe, or maybe somebody saying it, somehow something goes more corporate or more I don't know the word it would be, but more business minded, or I don't know, like, well, I think this would be, and just to give you examples what I mean by that, um kind of comes back to what we talked about earlier as far as using content. Like a lot of y'all are saying that, right, using content creators that are already passionate, they're like, hey, why don't you use it for this, and the boots on the ground and stuff like that. And it's like, it's almost as if they don't believe that will produce, you know. And I hear the words that I always heard a lot from different people was data doesn't show that, whatever. So because data doesn't show it, they don't believe it, right? But then it's like, but then there are people that experienced it that data can't grab, that can tell you, no, this would work if you did this, right? So and that's where it comes back to, and I don't mean this disrespectfully, and I'm just being straight up. Do you value the ones that are doing this over here? And I think that although they acknowledge that they do good work, I think the business mentality is, well, these people over here, they have accolades, or they have this game, that game, this. So let's cater to them. Let's try to put them in a better position, or not that. Let me. I'm trying to get the right words. Let's put them in a position because they'll help bring the hype. The only problem
Yeah.
is these people over here don't really care about the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just gonna be, and I'm being completely honest. I'm just being this is an observation. Dan, were you gonna say that? I'm sorry. Were you
No,
gonna say?
I just want to help you with an example. You're talking about, for example, when like I think it was Rhyme Style who did a Yu Yu Hakusho preview, and a lot of people could tell it was just he just got the cards and was like, these look cool, and that was it. And like, I
Well,
don't
if
think
anything,
that's a
because I
bad
watched
thing to
that one
do,
and
but
it hurt.
It,
yeah, it's like I get reaching out like that, but
right,
there was no communication between the two about like, hey, what's your budget? We're gonna teach you the game. We want you to provide an
right,
earnest example of it. It was just, hey, are you open to us shipping you these? Okay,
right. You can
and that's
and it
it.
seems like go. Sorry. Go ahead, Cam. I'm
No,
sorry. Go ahead.
I didn't say nothing.
I, I'm okay. I was saying, and that's the thing, and people can feel that. People can feel when you're putting a little more effort towards people that really didn't put no effort into the game. They don't care really about the game. They're not even trying. They're kind of like, I don't blame the people, right? They hey, got an opportunity. I don't know if they pay them, whatever they do. The point is, they got the opportunity. They're doing it, but it doesn't do what they thought it was going to do, right? The people make their content, they do what they do, and then you don't hear nothing else. Here's people over here that have the passion, that have the heart for it. They're like, hey, I'll do these. They've been already putting effort into it with nothing, right? And you're like, yeah, but I don't. Uh, thanks. We'll call you when we need you, but then they don't call you, right? Or they don't
Grow your
utilize you.
subscriber base a little bit first.
Right. Now that's where I say, although your player base, where like, oh, this would be cool with the players, then the business side kicks in. And it's like, yeah, but we need more eyes on it. They don't have enough subscribers, right? And I'm not saying this is just an observation. I could be completely inaccurate, right? I could be completely wrong, but based on our experience and what we all are talking about, because a lot of us are shaking our heads, it feels like that. And it feels like even with, like you said, Dan, when you made the point of when they took, Nats away, and just the way they were doing it, even and then just to touch on the webcam thing, you absolutely can do that, right? You can still do it. The only reason why it went that route anyway was because certain things weren't in place to avoid certain things. And what I mean by that is, all right, I'm gonna call it out. Better judge program. There's a lot of things that the judge just let slide. There's just I mean, let's just be here. There's just like they're like watching the game, and then they're not like, no, that was wrong. You cannot do that, right? Like, or however the rule is, or even if there's a way to conduct themselves in the tournaments, there should have been some kind of judge program of required of this is how we're gonna how we are. Hey, if somebody pulls themselves away from the hey, you got to bring yourself up. You know what I mean? We kind of just let certain things go, and it just left room for it. The only reason why, I hate to say it like this, but the only reason why cheaters do what they do, they find loopholes, right? They find what they can get away with. Oh, you didn't say nothing the first time I'm gonna do it? I'm gonna keep doing it. Right. So if we had and here's the comes back to the other thing as far as giving suggestions. When you're giving suggestions or thoughts, okay, there's plenty of people that have probably pointed that out of better judgment program, doing this. Hey, watch this, someone, and they kind of just put certain people in those positions, and those people are not doing that, right? They're kind of left to do the way they want to do it. I'll just give you a perfect example, and I won't call the person out, but there was a time where I was playing in a tournament. Some people are going to know what it is, but I'm just going to say it. This is what I mean. I was in a tournament, big tournament, and the individual thought, we both thought it was time. When we thought it was time, the person scooped up their cards.
Mm.
They scooped up their cards, shook hands, and scooped up their cards. I didn't say nothing. I I thought too, but I just like, oh, okay. They scooped up their cards, went to scoop up, and the judge goes, "Oh, that wasn't time. You can still play." After they scooped up and we shook hands, I'm like, hold on. Well, wait, hold on. Wait a minute. Now you're interfering with it. But then the person was even operating a certain way towards me, even in the door. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. Now I didn't make a big deal of it, but it only because I know if I say something, it might turn into something else. And it shouldn't feel like that. If things were already put in positions, things should be handled a certain way and operate. And if it's not, then yeah, you're always gonna have that. Even if you're the people have been cheating for a long time in multiple webcams and everything else. But if you're keep an eye on certain things and but I think now this goes to the other part. That's more player thinking. Businesses, is it conducive for us? Is this what does this really do? Yeah, we got players, but we got to get somebody to do the webcam. We got to do somebody to do auto. We got to pay. They might be even looking at the cost. This is just like I said. This is just observation. I'm not saying I know. I'm just saying the thought of it, and that's where the business side is this worth it? Can we do this? Like maybe we can put money towards something else, and this might be a waste of my our money. Go ahead.
Ty, at the end of the day, what you're getting at is exactly. I mean, it's kind of it's hidden behind. It's the
Right.
subtext of what we're talking about. But it's player focused decisions from a TCG company often cost more money than
Correct.
the more business focused decisions, and it's usually either it's taking a hit on something because you're doing right by the players, or it's an investment in trying to generate goodwill that you can then ride on later to grow the game or something. You have to think of it one of those two ways, typically
Yes.
from the TCG company's perspective. And I can remark on a number of things this year where it does feel like something was either not done or not included or
Yeah.
cut because it felt like it was an expensive thing and it just wasn't worth the cost. And all of those things I can think of are things that are like the players would have appreciated, I think, those remaining in the game, which is why I have a hard time saying that it was, despite some things like good IP choices and stuff,
Yes.
I have a hard time saying, well, it's a totally player focused year. It does
Yeah.
feel like we lost a few things that we shouldn't have.
And just to touch on that, I'm glad you said that too because, like you said, the IP is really interesting. Just to even touch on this, right? This is why I say I think we went away from the player point and more to the business because one of the biggest selling points for UFS, some of Cam, you might remember this, and some of y'all might already know this. One of the biggest selling points was the fact that if you won a champion, it was a champion of something, you were immortalized in the game.
Yeah.
That
I actually have a
was
whole bunch of old character cards that I would show off at demos and said, "This could be you."
that you know what I'm saying? That alone allowed me to get people into the game.
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you right like that. You're like, wait, whoa! I can play in the game, right? Like you're not just, and it's not just well, you're designing the game and that's it. You are designing the game and you can be played in the game.
You were
That was a
immortalized.
right. You have a ceiling in the game. Like what? I achieved something. What? And I'm in the game too. And then to like know that somebody could be playing as you across the table, stuff like that. I can't imagine like Tim keeping them how they were thinking. Some of they probably didn't care at first, or I'd be like, "Oh, you played as me? Oh,
As
you
someone
know."
who played Tim Keefe 2 against Tim Keefe at a tournament, it was pretty hilarious.
Yeah,
It, it,
I
it
was
just, but you know
hoping
what I'm saying?
I was hoping Nick Reagan would be released in time for me to play him at Nats.
Well, and see, and that's where we're going to see, and that's why I said everything that I'm saying is really conglomerate into. It's like a conglomerate of things, right? Communication. There's no reason why people don't already have their championship cards, right? We like Ashley, uh, um, uh, um, she had she should have had her championship card way long ago, right? I don't even think it
Yeah,
is
that
it's
was
still out, right?
We
pre-COVID.
guys,
Yeah,
we did hear at the summit. We talked like the creators brought this up, and they did say that they're making progress. And we're
Yeah.
currently like I think we're still waiting on a certain time point when they're supposed to reveal some progress on getting those out again, right? So just to give credit where it's due, it sounds like they're working on trying to implement that back. But
From
I mean,
unofficial sources,
yeah,
I believe they're at the printers at this point. I could be wrong. I could just be being fed copium because I want to play Nick Reagan and see these characters. But from what I hear, they're now being printed, so we should get more information soon.
Well, and even if it is being printed now, I guess I'm just talking about we're coming back to the communication part, right? Like, how long is the turnaround for before you become immortalized, right? Like, oh, I was a champion, or is it like, hey, we'll get to it when we get to it, right? And I'm pretty sure there's more inside things that we just don't know, right? That's just here there. I'm just talking about what is said versus what happens, right? Like that's why I don't like the string along, right? I don't like the, oh yeah, I'm pacifying, like, yeah, 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 we're gonna get there, 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 we're gonna get, and it's like, yeah, when, right? Like, or can we get something to give us a hint that we're progressing or progressing, or we're saying so that, um so yeah, yeah, and then just even what y'all touched on, and I'll say this without going any further. um when you were saying, Cam and Richard, y'all said it too, of the boots on the ground thing. Yeah, there's a lot of individuals that had shared that. And this comes back to the whole thing of, are they listening, or are they, you know, and there's times that questions are asked of a lot of players, right? But then you take your time to share that only for it to not be implemented, right? So it's like, well, then what did I just share that with you for? What did I just tell you that for? Or we're saying boots in the ground. We can say boots in the ground with people that are familiar, right? But then we end up seeing somebody boots on the ground that is not familiar with the game, and you just taught the game to, right? Like, once again, somebody who is not familiar with the game, but oh, because they have followers or because they have this, or whatever the business side of it. That's why I said it. That's where the business side comes in. Well, maybe we'll put them because their name's out there instead of, well, this person's passionate. This one's a community person. This one's the. Why don't we just try to put them up? And I think there was a time that I think it may have been explored, but I'm sure due to some inside things and some other things that transpired, it probably just got scrapped, or just like, yeah, I don't think that's going to produce enough. I don't think that's going to make us money. Whatever the case is, right? So that's why I do think that there is some level of player thought. Obviously there has to be, because they're making this game, right? They're doing they're the passion in it, and some of the stuff that's behind it. On the flip side, I do think this one is always going to outweigh this one. Or at least what I see now. I do feel like back in the day, maybe there was more of this than this, which is why we had the champion cards, all that other stuff. That was player thinking, right? This
Joffist.
side now has, yeah, right, Javis. This now has kind of grown more, and although it makes sense where money needs to be made and stuff. Yes, they do need to make money to keep producing product. I do feel like in doing that decision, somehow certain product just gets. Uh, I just don't. I feel like they're missing on those products still. I think there's just certain ones that's just a miss. It's like, this was a selling. You have an IP that should sell. This should sell. If it's not selling, it's not the IP's fault. There's something that wasn't produced the best way possible, so that way it could have. If that makes sense. I hope I was making sense in what I was saying.
Yeah,
I didn't feel
it
like it was
makes
all
sense
over
to
the place,
me.
but so that's just. I just think that there's things that they could have been better at. Now maybe next year is good. But we seem to do that all the time, right? Well, maybe next year. Well, maybe next year. Well, maybe next year. And I think, and I'm just gonna bring it here. I think when you hear the next, the next, the next, and you're over promising, under delivering. Right? We got this
Yeah.
thing where, yeah, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, and you get excited, get hyped up, get hyped, and then when it's released or produced, whatever, it's like it just drops. It's something drops, and we just dropped the ball. And I think that if there's anything they've been consistent on, that they're definitely consistent on that. There's certain times that the ball just drops. I think that they're doing. I'm giving credit where credit's due. I know it sounds like I've been trashing them more, but this is just observation. A lot of these are from what I've experienced myself, while also with other people in other states, other play groups. Play groups are not together anymore. I mean, we could go anyways. This is some of the stuff that, I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir on a lot of things. And even if there are representatives that are watching this, they might feel some kind of way or whatever. I'm just being honest and upfront. And I didn't do the survey on purpose, because I'm like, I'm either going to make a video or somebody going to interview me and we're going to talk about it like that. Because I feel like it comes off better. I'm just sharing it like this. If I texted you, it's just I don't want to waste my time. Let me be honest with you. I'm in a different phase of my life. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but there's a lot of times that I feel like there's time's been wasted when I did put a lot of passion behind some things.
And when you do something like this to give the feedback, you can explain it more as opposed to click these options. If I can give
Right.
like direct feedback, anytime they had like other option, I would just write, "Hey, I chose this option, but here's my reasoning."
You're
Like,
right.
for what's your favorite format? You can
Yeah,
only
you
pick
can't
one. I
break
said
it. Yeah,
other. I clicked other as like standard, but that's only because retro has no real structure to it.
and
Or
that
else I'd
oh
be
well
down with the Mad Lads in retro land.
that's another one, right? I mean, told retro is going to be supported and everything else, and now like I mean, people play port retro, but then they don't play retro, right?
I
We
think when
like
it comes
actually
down to
people.
some stuff like that. Oh, go ahead.
No, no, go.
I was gonna say, I think when it comes to some things like that, and some things you touched on with like the judge program, is that there's a lot of people who are in the know are kind of dependent on to do things like, oh, you've been playing this game a long time, will you judge for us? But then they're judging based on their levels of experience, and they don't have a structure. They don't have a system in place of these are like the tier 1 judges, the tier 2 judges. This is our,
There it goes. Yep.
if something needs to be appealed, this is the structure, the hierarchy, or a structure for even if we had like a judge class, like, oh, you want to be a judge, well,
Yep.
here's first of all, here's a test with some questions, because when they first did the sensei program, I had to do that
That.
test, and there was some
Yep.
dumb questions on that test. Like if what's that action from old Yoshimitsu? And it was basically like, hey, what's the
Oh.
order of operations on this card? I'm like,
Oh yeah,
that's a
the
good
cost, and
question.
yep, yeah, the cost,
It's
the yeah, the pay cost, and
uh
then check.
yeah, Shiki Soku Zeku. It's enhance, remove, spend 1 momentum, check a 7, remove this attack. It's like, okay, what is
That's
the
the
order of
cost.
operations for paying the cost? And there were a lot of people that got tripped up on that. Rightly so. It was convoluted. But,
Hmm.
and I think now the way they're wording things now is a lot better. But have a structure of, okay, these people want to sign up for like to be judges. Let's have a course. Let's have a course on, hey, let's sit down with like a designer or something like that and go through teaching you some of the more complicated aspects of the game that could come up. Like, obviously, you can't cover for everything, which is why you have a multi tiered system. But at least give your boots on the ground people who are going to be handling most of the calls the knowledge they need to figure out what's a repairable game state, what's an irreparable game state, how does this work? When can you step in to correct a player if a judge call hasn't been issued? Like the whole time thing. If they're like, oh yeah, it's not actually time. Well, you don't know if that person just finished their match or not. Maybe they just finished their match. Who knows? Why are you stepping in? And again, I don't know the exact situation. Maybe there was existential circumstances, but things like that of sometimes as a judge, if you see something, you need to say something. If you see
Hmm.
someone draw an extra card before things get too far gone, because if someone draws an extra card against me and it wins them the game, and then I find out the judge saw it and did nothing about it, even if I didn't catch it, I know I'm supposed to be, paying attention as well. But if I'm like reading one of my own cards and they just swipe another card quickly off the top of their deck,
Yep.
if the judge sees it, do they have a responsibility to correct that?
Just
And I
to
think we
correct
should
that.
have like a structure in place for not only just having judges, but also teaching new judges to onboard them so that we can have a better equipped staff overall to help the events run smoothly. And I think that could be helped with webcam too, because sometimes they'll only have like 1, maybe 2 judges for a 60-person webcam event, and they're just
Hmm.
popping in and out of different games at random intervals. Sometimes it's harder to catch things like that. So I can see why a lot of times they've had a lot more hand wavy. Well, we'll just reset it back to this and we'll figure this out as best we can. And so
Hmm.
that you don't have the structure of, people in place watching these things more hawkishly. So maybe that's where things can get slipped. And that's why you shouldn't have, like Richard said, too high a prize ceiling for these online events where there is a lot more uh, not liability, but variability for mistakes to happen or disconnects or stuff like that. It's just more
Mhm.
volatile.
Yeah, in a
Yeah.
webcam event, I think judges should be also responsible for game state. In an in-person event, it becomes a lot harder. So the last regionals, I was recording one of the top 8 games, and every top 8 game had a table judge as is standard. And I was speaking with the judge afterwards, and it would have been very hard for that judge to maintain game state as well as the players, because they also had to be very eagle-eyed about like the people watching the game. One of the biggest things he was looking for was people going behind players or looking for signals or the other things that if he was so focused on the game state,
Yeah.
he could have missed other forms of stuff that he was more worried about. So I get that judges, if they see someone has an extra card in hand, should go, yeah, you've got too many cards in hand, let's resolve that. But at the same time, they are only human, they will make mistakes, and they also have a
Exactly.
lot more to take into account.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, if you blatantly see someone, like, you just happen to be looking at a table and you see someone, like, maybe stack a card on top of their deck or something like that, and at a glance you can tell, okay, there shouldn't have been any reason for you to do that. At that point, should the judge step in? Should they not? There should at least be like a code of conduct of when you should be allowed to step in and when it's considered interference.
But we have
Because
got
I
a
think some
question.
judges will worry about interfering too much.
We've got a question in chat, and I think the best person to answer this would probably be Dan, which is, with the amount of product that UVS is pumping out at the minute, are they making a profit?
Oh wow. So anything I can give here is a complete estimation.
Yeah.
And yes, I have no actual information about that. Um, my if boy, if I had to guess, I would say just given the raw amount of overhead that they have now with the size of their company, I don't think they're making a profit, or if they are, it's very small. Currently, I could be totally wrong. I'm just guessing based on what I can see on the outside, but what I see are, I we know they have a lot of employees. We know they have hired a lot of people on. They are still, they are still putting on major events, even if I think they're not putting on the exact events that they need to be. But they are also paying for a lot of licenses, and they're shipping a lot of. They are shipping a lot of products, and those products are not frequently reaching sellout. So distributors are often buying a lot of them, but then the distributors not selling out often leads them to order less of the future products. We don't know how much of the for example, any given challenger deck is sitting at the sort of the UVS warehouses, but they do still have them for sale online on their website. So I know they've got some amount of them. I don't know if that's the exact pipeline for that the web store product or not, but I don't think that their products are selling out. I think they have a lot of overhead. Outside of Dark Tournament, that sold out, and then Girl Power is probably getting close now. But yeah, I would guess that there isn't a huge profit being made, and they still are kind of trying to hit a really good IP to surge growth in the game to get to the point where they can get selling out, and they're going to have to overcome their overhead and their licensing fees for a lot of different licenses to really reach that level. And I'd guess they're not there yet.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, you just brought up something. I just realized I thought about that. I think that was another big hurt, by the way. The errata for the challenger deck. Oh, I get you. Yeah, but they did too late. Yeah,
Yes,
it would make
100%.
yeah that yeah you made a very good point, and that
Oh,
actually
and I was
kind of
muted.
come.
I was muted the entire time. I was talking about the uh, documentation being out of date, the bans and erratas, the rules, all the stuff being out of date quite quickly.
Well, and just real quick, when you were just saying that though, I mean that still coincides with a lot of the stuff we've been saying anyway
Yeah.
about communication, right? Not being on point with certain things in a decent time. Uh, even I'd even go as far as to say even, and I not to go too far off because I want to stay where you're talking about, but just as far as lateness, as far as some of the IPs, I feel like sometimes we get the IPs too late. Like there's a hype for certain things, and I feel like this is the time strike when the iron's hot, and we wait until the hype is completely down, and now we're like, oh, don't worry, we should be able to bring the hype back up. And it's like, no, we don't have enough. We don't have enough fire. We don't have enough
I mean,
kick to get somebody up. But go ahead.
I get that.
I was going to bring that up too. Street Fighter 6 needed to happen last year.
It depends on the
Yeah.
like the negotiations, I guess. I mean, Yu Yu Hakusho is a set that's been on the books as far as I know, pre-pandemic. It was meant to come out before the pandemic, and it got delayed. It got delayed. It got delayed. But on the other side of it, they also kind of are on point with a lot of the products. The Dark Hero Challenger Arc box sets dropping at the exact same time the movie drops. Great, that's great synergy. But they need to have kind of leaned into that with the advertising and like work through Crunchyroll for getting it as part of the movie advertising and going, yeah, cool. Star Trek Lower Decks
Get a commercial out at the movie theaters.
Star Trek Lower Decks coming out basically 2 weeks before their last season wraps up is great because the hype's up there. People are already feeling nostalgic for the product. They want more. And the fact that we've got Ultimate Guard with their Star Trek Lower Deck boxes that are coming out next year as well. That's some really cool times. But there's no synergy around it. If they knew this stuff was coming out, they could synergize. We got Soul Leveling coming out the week after the season 2 starts, I believe. So there is timing synergy, but it's not kind of being advertised that way. If it makes sense.
Yeah.
I think in the TCG industry, timing releases with hype is almost impossible. It's really,
Yeah.
really hard to actually I can't think of a game that exists right now or that's really capitalizing on that because the turnaround for making the product is just a little too long. It just never
No. Right.
never quite lines up. You look at all the Bandai games that are popular for their IPs right now, and none of those are because oh, this is just really, really hot right now. It's like, no, just One Piece has always been popular.
Yeah.
Digimon has always been popular. Dragon Ball's always been popular. Dragon Ball's got, I mean, it got Daima now. The Daima just started, but Dragon Ball
I was
Super
gonna say.
popularity had very little to do over the long term with Dragon Ball Super. They did release right when Super was like kind of coming out, and that was
Right.
cool. But also it petered off like about a set in, and then it was gone, and then they rode it from there. So it's
Right.
I just think it's really hard to actually line that up. And
Well,
yeah,
and I bring. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Brett. You were
Yeah,
gonna say
so
something.
I'm just gonna. We got someone in chat saying about Critical Role coming a few years soon. I think this is the best time for Critical Role because they've just done like a Mighty Nine Vox Machina crossover. It's at their 10-year anniversary. So I think the set coming out on then is really good for hype, and I think collectors wise, it's going to sell really well. Player wise, depends on the cards themselves. But I was going to kind of just quickly piggyback off what Dan said there about Dragon Ball Super and talk about world pricing because the Dragon Ball Super world pricing has dropped, And if you compare that to what we're getting for participation, we get so much more for going to Worlds than what Dragon Ball Super players are going to get. They get a playmat and an energy token, and and the participation for our Worlds is a box, a pin, a playmat, 4 promos, 2 that exclusive. One is a 2019 Gen Con, which is really hard to get hold of. I think Worlds pricing wise, it's a great decision as a player player first.
That's interesting. I mean, comparing those two, sure, but comparing it to some other games, I think it doesn't hold a candle. So
I'd even and just to kind of touch on it, let me bring clarity on what I'm saying. I'm not saying that while something's hype, you're going to be able to get that. Not necessarily that, but just in that span of knowing that the popularity has increased. I feel like I guess I'm saying this. There's some people who with the right connects, and that's another thing. I guess that's another factor. Because with Bandai actually has hit certain things that were popular. Like you're right, like Dragon Ball was popular already. One Piece being popular and everything. One Piece was already popular just for a while, but there's certain, like even Dragon Ball kind of had a little spurt, right? Like it's like okay, it's popular, but then it almost seemed like it was like until Super came and then Super came and then everybody's like really like heavy into Dragon Ball even more than ever before. But the card game, I believe, I mean, let's just take Yu-Gi-Oh, right? Yu-Gi-Oh, I mean, people don't watch Yu-Gi-Oh now, but one of the reasons why Yu-Gi-Oh was able to do what it did was because, well, it had anime and it was popular and people were going on. So
I
the
got
reason
into it.
why I say, huh, huh,
So that's how I got into it.
yeah, and I'm not saying and I'm trying to bring clarity on what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they're going to be able to get it like right then and there. But I would think that they would already know what's good. And I guess it could be just a gamble, but I would think that they would already know what's already starting to be popular over here and say, okay, let's jump on this. Okay, let's see how we can knock this out by this time. And I don't know if they necessarily do it like that or if they're just kind of, and I mean, yes, you can't control IP holders might do this, do that. They make things difficult. That is something that we got to acknowledge. IP holders, they definitely make certain things extremely difficult. Even old Jasco would talk about how things were just difficult, right? Um, I just think that sometimes our timing, I guess, so like for instance, let's take AOT. AOT, we already know had an anime, has the anime, the manga, so we got the manga, everything else. But there was a game that already did AOT, right? So I'm just thinking in my head, like, all right, I feel like this is already played out. So what can we do that is not played out that has some kind of excitement that can kind of bring something? That's what I'm just thinking. Now I could be completely off here, but I just feel like there are certain IPs that we could be able we could have a chance to hit a little bit better or try to seal it sooner. And I think maybe we have focused somewhere.
I mean, AOT is one of those ones where it has its own dedicated fan base. It'd be the same thing as if
Sure.
we did a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood set. The people would come out of the woodworks to collect those cards.
What? But
like the
using
will
Full
for
Metal?
Union Arena.
Yeah, like for
Yeah,
Union, I didn't even know
Because
that was
Union Arena is getting FMA.
There we go.
that's
But
what do you see?
yeah,
But Union
Which
Arena is just lesser universes. I've tried
that
that
but
game.
that's
It's not fun.
but no that but
I
that's
can't
I
mix
think
Spanish.
that's
I
my
don't want to be in it.
but
no, but that's my
yeah.
point. I guess that's what my point is. Sorry, Brett. I just want to.
Yeah.
That's my point though. Like, there's no reason why Full Metal wasn't already. I don't know if they already did, but I feel like there's something that was a focus over here, and they jumped on the band. They jumped on it too late. That's what I'm saying. I think that there's some things that may have been too late at getting at, or it could have if we had jumped on it sooner or maybe tried to explore it sooner or did what they were supposed to, we probably could have been in a different place. And
Yeah.
I feel like we end up going for IPs that, well, nobody's really looking at. So maybe we can make this one. Maybe we can use this one since nobody's really caring too much on this, but we can this hype on this. But it's just it feels like we're jumping on something or grabbing things that well nobody has this, so we can get their player. But I mean we can get their audience even if it's not as popular, but it's something. It's got something over it. So let's go on this one. This is more easier to grab than this one over here. And I feel like we should have been had something like Full Metal Alchemist. Like, there's no reason why the Union
So
Arena. I feel like Ben is trying to just be like, look,
yeah.
We try to take everything so nobody can get it. But go ahead.
So what you're saying is like the solo leveling challenge we're getting with this season 1 stuff would have been better if it came out towards the end of season 1 when the hype was at its highest. Then we got more stuff for season 2. So kind of like
Yes.
trying to predict what's going to be popular based on, because I mean, solo leveling was always going to be popular. It has a massive.
It was going to. It was.
Yeah. But if
massive following. You already know.
So say if we had, instead of lower deck, well, say rather than solo leveling coming out in January, we had a Dan challenger or a Shangri-La Frontier challenger, where these are like the hyped up animes of of the current season, and going, okay, they're currently ending. Relive these fights. Here's a Okaroon into Turbo Granny shift card, and basically going along those lines. Going, we knew it was going to be popular. We got the IP early. We got the cards ready to go. This anime's finished. Season 2's been announced. Here's your challenger. Join the game. You know about that kind of timing.
That's like impossible, though. All I'm saying is that kind of timing would be sure. I mean, if we could have an announcement of Dan releasing the next couple months or something, that'd be like the fastest they possibly could. And I think that's actually still impossible. It's just not a realistic thing.
It's very risky for a small company to make those kind of predictions, because if they get one wrong, they lose a lot of money.
It's not even about predictions, though. I just don't think the assets are available to them to actually properly make this product.
I will say that at least from what I saw with, like, if we take My Hero, when we first got My Hero for University, even though it took a little bit longer, it was almost like they were still we had, obviously, I'm sure they had IP problem, whatever they were having, but they did get it and use it at the time when My Hero was starting. I think it was either, I don't know if we were in season 2 or season 3. I don't know what it was, but there was something that was still going there. I think that, and that was still dealing with COVID at the time. Now COVID that really slowed some things down. So there are some that have captured it. That's why I said I guess it depends on the connects, right? I guess it depends, because I can say old Jasco definitely, when they would jump on something, they can grab it at. Now I'm not saying that everything, they didn't do it all the time. My Hero, maybe that was just one of those things, like, well, you got it at a decent time, and really a lot of people really wanted My Hero. So it's not that you're right. It's next to impossible, but it's possible, I guess, depending on the individual or who's backing or who's got what, right? I don't know that whole thing behind the scenes, so maybe I'm a player, right? So I don't know.
Dan might be able to. This is something I did. This was what I did want to do, like a video with Dan about. But is it a lot harder to get hold of IPs now? Because it kind of, to me, I only played one game for many years, and now I'm looking at, as a content creator, looking at all these games that are coming out, and there's seems to be an influx of games as well as multi IP games. Godzilla's getting their own game, Gundam's got their own game, League of Legends is getting a game, and to me, it reminds me of back in the late 90s, early 2000s, where Buffy the Vampire had a game, Naruto had a game, Fullmetal Alchemist had its own game, and it's a case of, is it a lot hard to get a hold of popular IPs, because they might have someone on the advertising team going, we could make our own game? And what we don't want is universes to essentially being a testing rod to go, oh, is the water warm enough for us to make our own game? We'll just use this company to find out.
It definitely, I mean, it's a crowded market, and I as much as you want to write it off, Cameron, Union Arena is not a game that is you can underestimate. It's they're going to grab a lot of the anime IPs that universes would want to have as well. That doesn't completely
monopolize.
It doesn't preclude universes from getting them at some point, because every licensing agreement is unique and different, and sometimes games can produce them at the same time. Others, they just have to wait a year. Others, they just hold on to an exclusivity for a long time. So all that stuff it is going to make it a little more difficult for universes to find the quality IPs, because some companies are going to snatch them up. And I think actually it's not a bad case scenario, though, if a company just goes, yeah, sure, universes can take it for a set, take it for a spin, and we'll see if it's popular, and we'll publish our own later, because the truth is a lot of those just aren't going to pan out in the long term anyway, and at least we got something out of it. The thing about universes, the really weird and the thing that makes it a difficult game to market sometimes is that you cannot get into universes as a fan of just one IP and expect that to be your experience for years. That's
Mhm.
just, it's a game where you are ultimately going to have to at some point mix things
Branch
up
out.
and
Yep.
care about the game more than you care about the IP that you're getting into.
Yep.
So if an
Yep.
IP can be grabbed just even as a trial run or whatever, and we go, okay, they're gonna make a Critical Role game on their own in 2027 anyway, but we got it for this set. If that allowed a few more players to find the game and latch on to the game itself, that was successful.
What's up, y'all?
Yeah, that makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. When I looked at like this year and last year, we've got the Godzilla MTG, then the Godzilla universes, and now Godzilla getting their own card game with the 70 years. It's like my head just really went, oh, they just use Magic and universes to test if this was going to be popular. They found out it wasn't.
Yeah.
Like, well, we'll do it ourselves.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, and we've detracted a lot from the play first decisions.
Yeah, I've been saying that I've been waiting patiently to jump in. I've got thoughts.
Oh yeah, Rich has been Rich has been waiting patiently. I'm sorry.
Before I jump back over to Richard, there's one thing I do want to praise UVS for with the first play decisions, and that's the reward store price increase for postage. Because although it's $5 for every order you do, it has made the system so much better. Orders are getting done quicker. Orders are reaching people quicker. It's opened up a lot more doors. And yes, it's one of the things that when I'm ordering promos from the reward store now, I feel more important. I'm not just being chucked into a massive bundle of orders that are going to go out at the end of the month. My order gets processed immediately. I get email updates about it, and I'm getting it as an international player within about 2 weeks, 3 weeks max. So but basically going, yes, we know it sucks that you have to pay more, but this is to help you out, and I think this was a great decision, and it was very well done and very well communicated by the company.
Well, Richard,
So-
it's you.
Yeah. The player first decisions sort of come down to one question, right? I think is do they give a shit? Right? I mean, that's sort of how to translate that, right? Does the company actually give a shit? Do the people that make decisions actually give a shit? I think they do, right? I think the interactions I've had with people like Paul, like one of the owners, like I think he genuinely does care. Like I don't think it's just bluster and nonsense and he just wants money, right? I think he does genuinely care, wants to succeed and cares about the player base, right? I think a lot of the times where it comes across as this isn't a player first decision, I think is multiple reasons. Sometimes they do have to make decisions because they are a company, and that's okay, right? Sometimes they do have to make, like, let's say webcam was just bleeding them with money, or it was a litigation risk they couldn't afford to take. Okay, maybe communicate that a bit better. Going back to our first subject, but like if that's a decision you have to take because of those reasons, fair. I think they are spending too much time, as I mentioned earlier, in firefighting mode, and I think that's something they really need to deal with. And when you're in that mode, bad decisions get made, rush decisions gets made, so you're not necessarily going to end up with that player first, that best decision. And I think a lot of the times they're running before they're walking. I think that's what a lot of this comes down to. I think Dan touched on it earlier. I think they sort of maybe think they're a bit bigger than they actually are. And part of that, and I think this is the most, what I think they think is player first, but actually isn't, and I think is a bit of an issue, is product overload. And I don't know whether that comes under maybe a product section later.
I don't know how much later we can really go, in all honesty, but yeah.
Yeah.
Part one.
Maybe we have to schedule a part 2 at some point if people are free, but I think the product overload is an issue. I think we don't currently have the player base to sustain the current levels of product. Personally, I've probably bought less now. There's more product than I used to. Just because like sets sort of 1 to 4, 1 to 5, whatever, I would just get play sets for everything. Maybe took a little bit, but I would try and get as much to get play set. And then basically it got to Yu Hakusho, and I just sort of gave up. I would just get the cards I wanted. I'd buy like a box or two, and I effectively end up buying less product.
For a lot of people,
and
this is their secondary game, so it's a lot harder to keep up with this as well.
I think the product overload is an issue. I don't know how to fix that sort of at a corporate level when they've got like when things are done like 2 years in advance or year and a half in terms of like contract negotiations with IPs, design and stuff. But I do think it is a problem. They need to pare back a little. I understand wanting to, get products out, get IPs out. I think what you were saying about this isn't I like this IP, so I'm going to play this game because I love this IP game, right? In the same way, like, I think One Piece is probably a much worse game than this fundamentally. Like, I haven't never played it. For what I've seen of it, it looks, and I constantly take the piss out of people who play it and call it a baby's game. I'm sure it's fine, but people play it because they love One Piece or whatever, right?
And there's big money tournaments.
And there's big money. There's other reasons for it, right? But a lot of people would have gravitated to it because I love One Piece, so I want to play One Piece. Similarly, with this game, a lot of people, and the big boom was, I love My Hero Academia, so I'm going to go play it. That's why I got into the game. Not personally, I couldn't give two shits about My Hero Academia, but my son did, so that was a way of me getting into the game, right? As a game we could play together, and then I really liked the game. Some people aren't going to gel in that exact same way. And we obviously we lost people when we went from it just being My Hero Academia to other IPs coming back in the game. I think in generally it's good, but I do think and I think actually, Brett, you kind of misread what Ross was saying, is we should have a flagship. And so he was saying, I think he was saying we should be the Critical Role CCG for a few years. And then maybe we have let's say we get 3 or 4 booster sets a year, right? Where next year we've got Critical Role, AOT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Guilty Gear. It's nice to get all these IPs. I do feel like maybe there should be a flagship, whether that's just for a year, whether that's for like 2 or 3 years, whatever, supplemented by these other IPs. So, maybe we'd have like 2 or 3 sets of Critical Role with maybe a set of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles chucked in with the odd challenger deck flung around. I feel like that might be a lot better and more conducive to growing that player base. A person who loves Critical Role comes in, they get their Critical Role boosters, and then the next set comes out and it's Attack on Titan. They're like, couldn't give two shits about Attack on Titan. I've not been playing this game for long enough to be so invested. I've got my Critical Role cards. I'm fine. They play through 2 or 3 sets of Attack on Titan, or it's like, okay, we've got this set, but then there's a new set of Attack on Titan coming out, and there's a third one this year. Well, maybe I'll continue playing, give this other stuff a go, and that's how they get sucked into what fundamentally, I think we all agree, is a really great game. Because part of this is, although yes, we've been very critical. Some, not all of it, but sometimes been critical. But it's coming from a place of love, right? We love this game, or else we wouldn't be talking about it. Right.
Before anyone quickly chimes in, we've got Keenan and Tim in chat, and Keenan's basically saying that he doesn't own a single attuned card. He just couldn't keep up with the amount of product that was releasing, so hasn't actually picked anything up in like 8 months. And Tim's basically saying one way to improve what you were saying, Richard, is to basically say make the game playable without. Or making the game worth playing without having to have access to every single card.
Yeah, which is a bit worse with attuned. I mean, I think Attack on Titan is its own subject, right? And the things that I was sort of okay with taking shots on and have, I think, fundamentally failed. Like I said, I think when it comes to player first decisions, my gut, and obviously I don't know these people as good friends or personally, I don't know my gut says it's not coming from a place of sort of malice or not wanting or just corporate greed. We just want to make
Yeah.
money. I
But-
do genuinely feel like Zoe, you can't have an interaction with her and not feel that she is genuinely passionate about what she does, right?
Yeah.
Again, every interaction with Paul, I've always felt like he genuinely does care about this game.
Yeah.
I think there is that care there. I just think they're spending too much time, A, firefighting, and B, running before they're walking. And I think if they can get those two things sorted, and I suppose the third thing is for every 10 good things they might do, they fuck up once, and that's the thing that they get remembered for, right?
Mm.
Like they can print 10 excellent cards, everyone's going to remember Punch of Slam, right? And that's Tim always put this best because obviously it's Tim and he always puts things best, but as they keep stepping on rakes, right? They keep just going forward and then stepping on the rake, and that's what people notice. Not that they progressed this far, they notice the fact they stepped on the rake.
So I have a question for the group. That does tie into what Richard was saying. Did anyone watch the Game of the Year awards for basically this week?
I didn't, and I do need.
No, I didn't even know
to
they were a thing
reset
until
that.
someone asked me about it the next day.
So,
Nope.
My boy Astro took home the Game of the Year through Astrobot, but the head of Larian Studios, aka Baldur's Gate 3, which is massive community support, went on stage and did a speech that he wanted to finish last year, but essentially was cut off. So was given a chance to finish it this year. And he said he can predict who is going to win next year's Game of the Years. He can tell you who is going to win this year's Game of the Year because the Game of the Year will always be the game that has the most love put into it by the designers. It's the game they want to play. It's the game that they are passionate about. It is and that is what drew a lot of us into the game. We could feel the passion of design of the create. And Zoe and Hitch and the creative team cannot fault them. They do an amazing job with these cards. But asking here, and I'll probably repeat it for Richard when he gets back here, do we feel that the design team want to play this game? Do we feel like the design team are making sets, are making products that they want to play?
All right, because I know I'm gonna have to go in a little bit. I'll take this one first if that's okay.
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Good.
So that's a very tough question because there's some people that used to be part of it, right? There's some people that used to be part of the game that are no longer part of the game, right? There's some people that used to be part of the design team that are no longer part of the design team, right? So that's why I say that that's a very tough question because although I think that I believe that some of the designers and stuff do want to play things that they may have designed or whatever. I'm gonna say I think it's a chalk between playing somewhat. I don't know if the passion is as much there. I'm gonna be honest with you. I think that there's some that and the reason why I say that is because there are those that were heavy into this game that I believe even have helped even with some of the design and stuff just behind the scenes and stuff that stopped playing this game. They're just like, and I'm not saying somebody that actually worked. I'm just saying, I mean, there may be somebody that worked there too, but some people that actually helped with things, and they're just like they're not playing anymore. They don't like the direction of the game. They don't like what has happened with the game. I think they feel like the what drew people to the game and what has it is not there anymore. It's lacking. Um, I mean, overall, I mean, I still love the game, obviously, because I play, right? Like, I don't have a play group anymore because well, people don't like AOT. They don't like. I mean, I could go down the line. I could go. I know we're talking about the design itself. I think that there are some times. I think that there are some times that. Um, sorry, my little one is joining. She's like, I want to see them. There you go. See, you say? All right. All right, now go inside. Go inside. Go inside. All right. She said, I love you guys. She says she loves you. All right. To finish out, um, they I don't know if they're just doing their job now, right? It seems like some of it might be just they're just doing their job. Like it's just a job. It is. I think that there's some people that do have a passion for it. I don't know if they play it because there's a lot of people that I've even see they may play the game, but then they're playing other games more. That's something that hey, I know some of y'all know, so I'm just saying it. But there are people that played the game that worked for the company and everything else, or worked for the company or did work with whatever, and they're playing other games. That's just I'm just gonna leave it out there. And that to me tells me a lot. That tells me a lot. If somebody's actually in my as far as the current designers, I can't speak for them. I think that there's still a love for it because they're there. But as far as who may have been there and not there now, I'm gonna say that I don't know if the passion is there as much as it used to be. I could be wrong, but that's just
Tim
my
does
observation.
raise a very good point. With my analogy of when designing a game,
I'll take
it's the ones with the most passion that do well. That would apply if this was a new game, but this is an already pre-established game. But I think
Yeah,
with the amount of changes that are actually coming in, it does sometimes feel like a new game. I mean, Attack on Titan set itself could almost be its own like sub variant of universes. It feels like it could just have been a entire spotlight format on its own. And we have been joined
yeah,
by
yeah.
another adorable co-host.
I don't like I said I don't want to right yeah I know that's why I said I'm gonna probably have to go in a minute but I don't now I say all of these things everything that I'm saying I just want to make it very clear I don't mean any of this disrespectfully so if they are watching I'm just gonna tell them like look I'm just sharing the observation things that I've experienced but overall still love the people still love folks and I want to see this succeed I wish it would I'm hoping it
Everything
was I'm
said
hoping Critical
today.
I haven't even watched Critical Role you know what I mean
Oh,
but
Yeah, it's on
uh,
your
you
list.
know, I'll be honest, and I think Dan may have said it earlier. Um, although the IP is one thing, playing the game, right? I think you said something about the different, like you have the IP, but most people will say I want to be able to play the game, right? IP may be great and phenomenal, but if the game, or I mean, sorry, if the game is lacking, or if it's not doing well, or the character or IP is not doing well in the game itself, like it's not feeling like you're feeling like you want to play this because you're like, well, this these decks over here outclass the IP that I really want to see do something, right? But it's because of however it was designed or whatever. I think that's a I do think that there's a level of passion that's missing. I think there's somewhere along the line it's like, nah, we need to make sure this really. I think that I feel like AOT kind of actually captured a little bit more of the passion, in a way because of the way some of the characters were designed. Some of the characters kind of have a certain feel to it. It's like, okay, I see you're trying to capture something, um, but I, I'm not. I'm unsure. I'm unsure where people are,
no.
where they are with it. So,
I don't. I
anyways,
think everyone here can agree that everything we're saying today, we don't mean maliciously or vindictively.
yeah,
It's all coming from a place of love and respect. Because even for those of us who don't play the game anymore or play it as much, we want this game to do well. We want it to succeed. It's such a
yes,
unique and interesting and interactive game that we want it to
right.
do well. And not a single person would be here if they had
Right.
ill feelings towards this game. Everything we're saying here,
Absolutely.
we hope if UVS is watching, they're taking as constructive criticism and not an attack. We do not mean any of this is an
Right.
attack.
If we didn't give a
Right.
shit, we
Like,
wouldn't be
yeah.
talking. Like if we didn't give a
Right.
shit, I wouldn't be here. I would have
Exactly.
been
Yeah.
watching. I would have been watching NFL Red Zone or watching the NFL. Right. I'd have been
Right.
watching
Right.
Broncos.
And
Hopefully
you're
beat the
absolutely
Colts.
absolutely
I would be
100% Richard. I'm
finishing
glad you said
Critical
that.
Role.
Yeah.
I have listened
Well,
to 95 episodes of the podcast in a month and a half.
that man is tripping.
They're like
I like I said,
3 hours long,
I
aren't they?
Yeah, they're
right.
free to.
I'm
They're
just
about 2.5 to 4 hours long each.
yeah, you next level. I'm gonna have to get going, y'all. I know I didn't mean to just do it like that, but
No worries, Ty.
I love y'all all, man, and I'm thank you for having me, Brett, Richard, Dan, Cam. Thank you so much for allowing me to rant a little bit, and just chat. But But thank you for just even, and I'm just gonna say it like this for everybody that's watching, but to all the guys that are here and even content creators, thank you for just doing what y'all do, man. You know what I mean? Like y'all, thank you for just still sticking in, even when it's like, sometimes it can get irritating, sometimes it get rough, and it's like even when some people don't notice it. But I just want to say those that do notice it, I notice it, and I love you guys. I appreciate just everything that you guys produce, and that y'all just continue to just do your thing, whether for UVS games or for something else. Y'all are well all stars to me. So I just want to say that, and I shout out to UVS games. Thank you for even listening to us. If you're not, it's okay. We still love you, and we here. And I'm believing. I still want to believe that 2025 is just going to be better than 2024. And for all the work that y'all have done, if they are watching, hey, appreciate y'all. Thank you for just doing something. You know what I mean? You do a little bit more than some other companies at times, but keep at it, man. And hey, hear us out, hear our hearts, man. We love the game. We want everything to succeed. So other than that, that's it. That's all I got to say for you
No
guys. I
worries,
love you
Ty.
guys.
Thanks for
Much
being
love,
here.
Ty. Thanks for
Much love.
joining us, buddy.
Hope to see you
And
soon.
obviously, you've got a much more important audience there for your attendance.
To KO, this is the new recruit. This is what's been taking up a lot of time, y'all.
Yeah.
But this is the next car gamer, man. Damn, we're gonna have to introduce all the games, man.
Next
Well,
world
fellas,
champ
Demo
right
session.
there.
yes, sir. All right, love you guys. Thank
Catch
you
you in a
so
bit,
much.
Ty. Thanks for being here, man.
Yes,
See you,
sir.
Ty.
Bye bye. See you
Ty.
guys.
Yeah.
Something I had a thought of when you were asking if there's still passion in the design. I don't know how many people they have on the design team, but if it's a smaller team, they could probably be affected by the same product overload burnout that we are when they have to design obviously so many sets ahead and they're wanting to get so many things in a year. I could definitely see maybe some character designs where it's just like, well, we need another character, let's just throw something together. So some areas of the set designs do have a lot of passion behind them and a lot of creativity, but then like the new Jean Kirstein or Jean Kirstein, however you say it. Jean Kirstein. Even in my preview video for him that I reviewed that and did the Day 0 deck build, I was like, why does this character even exist? It felt so weird and clunky, and I've noticed there are some characters that have kind of fallen off like that. It's like, okay, maybe this person was just added because they just had to throw in the name, or this is a big character, but we don't really have any ideas for them, so let's just throw them in here, make them kind of generic. And sometimes you feel like that's kind of where the passion leaves a little bit. But if they're doing this for 4 sets a year, 2 years in advance, plus Challenger Series, maybe they're affected by the same burnout that we're feeling on the retail side. That could definitely be a factor.
Well, when it comes to designing these sets, I first of all, just to like briefly answer, I wouldn't say the passion's gone or anything, but I mean, I do think that the amount of design that has to happen certainly does play a role into how the designs ultimately come out. But like, for example, with Jean, this is the second Jean that you're making. What are Jean's defining features as a character in Attack on Titan? He's kind of plain, right? He had a few relationship things that we know about for sure, but like it's not like they can latch onto a Titan form and just make it make sense like they do with some of the Titans. It's like he's just part of the crew. So it's like I sometimes you're forced to design something and you just got to do the best you can with what you're given, and there's no real easy gimmick to latch onto and be like, this will make the character's flavor come out. You just got to make a Jean Kirstein sometimes. And
MHA is a
that
great
makes
example.
sense.
MHA is a great example of it. We don't get the best character development for a lot of the characters, and then you've got people like Ochako that needs to be in pretty much every set, but their character development went from I'm doing this for my family to I'm in love with Deku, and they didn't really get anything else. And we've got 5 Ochakos, so it's like you've got to kind of like sometimes go, yeah, we're gonna bite one here, and they're still decently made, but there isn't
It's
always
like any job, right?
yeah, there isn't
There's
always
going
enough
to be a
information.
certain percentage of it that is phoned in. Like, it's just always going to happen. It's like any sort of job.
Yeah.
Like, these are human
Yeah.
beings there's going to be a certain amount where it's like, fuck it, let's just do a cycle of 1-5, commit for -2 speed,
Yeah.
do it. Right,
Tim
five on
raises
the
a
card.
Tim raises a good point in chat, basically saying someone had to put text on fourth kind. Fourth kind has like what 30 seconds of screen time in the entirety of the show, and he's got a very decent card. It's a case of like sometimes the translation stone that they use for IPs is going to be on point, and sometimes unfortunately they're going to have to just go. This is something we're missing from the set, or this is something we need for draft or sealed, and this character has to take that hit.
Yeah, but I do still feel like there is a lot of passion still in the game in answer to the broader question.
Yeah, I mean they're doing creative things. You know, like the solo leveling deck is a good example of them just like trying to lean in on the unique theme of that world and everything. And as long as they keep doing stuff like that, that'll be fine. That's not. I don't think that's like the core issue at play here. I think my issues with the company are outside of design specifically, and they're more about higher level decisions and communication and marketing and I mean I have some questions about some like core level decisions about the game as well that I would have done differently, but that's not something that's actually like realistically changeable or fixable either. So
yeah.
So and we've got Tim and Keenan in chat talking about it. In this case, saying that Tim was saying, how many times can you have a 4-check attack meta before it just gets stale and boring?
No, he's talking about a 4-diff 3-check, right?
Four diff 3-check.
As in, as many battle releases as you can play.
What we were seeing at the beginning of the year with Younger to Go basically going, here's a bunch of 4 difficulty attacks that have free control, and if they hit you, you die. And a lot of passion has been Attack on Titan with these new high difficulty attacks has got a lot more passion in it. I mean, I brought Dabby back for it because I thought that was going to be absolutely amazing. And I came up with a deck that allowed me to string them out as well, which I absolutely loved.
But when it comes to design, like I don't hate it, right? I think there are mistakes, but any sort of card game design team makes mistakes. Every once in a while, you print a skull clamp, right? Smiling Titan was a mistake. You know, Risky Encounter was a mistake. Arguably, Combined Firepower was a mistake, but that's fine. Like, I don't think they're like egregious. Let's dial this in shit. Like, I've in a way you could argue that the blank 0-5-3 block or 2 block, whatever.
Freeze for anyone else? No, there he is.
The foundations in Attack on Titan, like the blank ones in there, are a bigger issue than like something like Risky Encounter being a power outlier, just because they were just dross filler, utterly unplayable, and they were more of a sin, I would say, than them sort of fucking up on a power level thing. So, but I think from a design perspective, they're trying new things. I think Attack on Titan went all in too much, and I think a lot of the design choices they made haven't panned out. But I'm okay with them sort of introducing new things. Like frenzy, I think, is like a totally reasonable keyword, completely innocuous. Whether it kind of works in the concept of lower depth or not, I don't know. But the level up thing for Sung Jin Woo, I think, is totally fine. Again, it's not a crazy complicated rule to add in.
I think the big thing with Attack on Titan was also the timing wasn't great because we got the article saying we're bringing in Blitz to make it easier for players to understand the game and to reduce mental load, and then going, here's also Shift, Ruin, Outwit, Frenzy, and just bringing in lots of new stuff and basically going, well, you told us one thing, but you're doing something completely different. And it was more, it's a timing thing in that situation. But AOT is probably a lot better than people are giving it credit for, but it's more, we were told one thing and then got something else.
Again, it's the one bad thing sticks out when they might have done 10 good things, right?
I mean, there was a point where UVS were on a kind of hot streak of good decisions. Like, I honestly cannot remember where it was because, like you say, the bad sticks out more than good. But they were making some very good decisions. They were being very open with communication. And then I think the world stuff came out, and everyone just immediately sort of like, oh, that calmed down. And I think I put this in a video, and it's my least watched video of the year, which I love. I I like to treat this year as two separate years, pre Josh and post Josh. And I think a lot of the stuff for the bad decisions, like worlds being sealed, are situations that the current UVS got locked into. Because from my interactions with Josh and from my understanding of Josh, there's no way that man runs a sealed world. There's no way he spends months telling us that events need to be celebrations, need to be huge things where people are being drawn in by the IP and are staying for the game. Then goes, yeah, but Worlds is going to be sealed to 64 people and we're not going to do things like, no. If Josh had been here since the beginning of the year, that would be our biggest event of the year and it'd be highlighting everything we have yet to come. I expect like Circus Olay style performance from that guy when it comes to Worlds. There's no way there's someone that passionate about the organized play that is put in there. And I think, although we've had a lot of turnover this year, bringing in people like Josh, like Matt, that are very passionate, that are very good at their job and passionate for their job, are great additions to people like Zoe and Hitch who have already got that passion. And it's a great step that the company's going in. And I think that's why when it came to Worlds of Fire, I was like, I will happily wear a tinfoil hat and say, Josh is not responsible for this, and I will fight for that. And then Rochester stepped in, and I don't think Sean did that by himself. I think Josh was basically looking for any way to open up Worlds up, and this was the path of least resistance.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, that's a firefighting thing, right? They were backed into this because there was 14 minutes between Nats and Worlds. And that was kind of what they felt was probably going to be the best way to fight that fire. Turned out maybe there was another option, and Sean bailed them out, I think. But again, it was very much that was a transition between Jelly and Josh. And Josh was kind of, well, I've got this thing I need to work with and make the best of a bad situation. And that was his way of trying to fight that fire. And, it's got to the best conclusion eventually. But again, I think it's that fighting fires, reacting rather than being proactive, right?
I think Dan had something he would say from my rant as well.
Yeah. What I often also popping off what Richard is saying too. Like we are when we're dealing with TCGs, there's sometimes we're in an unfortunate position where we are, we're doing this end of year. We're trying to gauge how they did the last year. And a lot of what they were doing, like a lot of what they did over the last year was actually what they did in 2022, right? That's when they set it up. That's when they built all this out. That's when the sets were designed. That's when all this stuff happened. And really, we're kind of grading their 2022 based on what we saw in 2023. And what we're going to see in 2024 is what they've been doing in 2023. There's this unfortunate delay that causes it to be a little complicated to kind of provide a really clear, concise, like, oh, yeah, they're doing great. Everything's good. Or, oh, man, everything sucks. It's the absolute worst. Because we are really in not to use the cliche again, we're in a transition right now where we're trying to see what, like you said, Josh, who I know very well and is a very passionate person who is very good at his job doing OP as well, at least historically, is certainly, I think, going to bring some great change into the game. But his efforts probably can't really be felt yet, or if they can, it's very, very hidden. And like you said, maybe he scrambled together to get things fixed. But all that said, I do also want to point out that I just don't think that it's always a good blanket excuse for this kind of stuff, because companies are capable of they're not capable of being as agile as we want them to be, but when they're serving a smaller player base, they are capable of being more agile than other ones. That, like, Magic is a gigantic cruise ship and they got to steer like one. Smaller games can often afford a little bit more leeway because they've got less to do to solve problems often. And the things like the sealed world, I just still think that should never have even come close to being an option. But some companies do it. Like Konami announced they've got a sealed worlds as well this year for Yu-Gi-Oh, and then that's whatever. That's their decision. But um, I'm hoping to see in 2025 um, a lot of these things that I am hitting on improved. And I think there's a lot of reason that you could reasonably expect that could happen. I hope that Josh does a great job, knocks it out of the park. I've thrown out plenty of things, like you mentioned the prizing earlier, Brett, for Worlds. And I'm not a huge fan of the prizing that they announced. I feel like the promos are, yeah, to the Fusion World's credit, it's a really nice energy marker promo that you get. And the promos you get for universes just have participant slapped on the top and they don't say worlds anywhere or anything. Like, there are things that could have been done better, even if they had to keep to this exact structure for whatever reason. And I want to see them improve on that. I also have to be realistic and say we've said that about the company for a few years. Like, oh, it's coming. This next year, I think they're going to knock it out of the park. They're going to fix this. This is going to be better. So we just are going to have to see. I think ultimately where things line up. I want to be optimistic though. I want to lean on that and hope that it all comes out positively. And I hope they listen to everything we have to say here. I hope they listen to everything. I'm going to be a little out of content creation for it for a while because my locals completely died. I tried to revive it and I couldn't get it. So it's tough. It's just tough for me to put effort into content creating, but I'm still following the game. I'm still watching. I'm still rooting for it. I want universes to solve some of these problems and really nail it going into the next year. And I hope that it's just a cruise ship steering thing that we're watching here. And we're going to go into it and we're going to see some great timelines, great announcement, great prizes. And ultimately, I want this game to live up to what Paul said in an interview when they took over that the game was going to be. He says there's no reason it can't be one of the best TCGs on the market. We just got to see those decisions made to make that happen. And hopefully they can, keep working on that.
Yeah.
No, yeah, makes perfect sense. Any thoughts from you, Cameron?
Like I also agree that when they're working so far ahead, it is like we're judging the past as opposed to the present. Um, and yeah, I've been with this game through a lot of different transition periods. We had the COVID moving into like the MHA exclusive for a while, which I know dropped a lot of my locals off when they found out it wasn't going to be like multi IP anymore for at least the next few sets. And then we lost some of our My Hero players when they learned it wasn't just My Hero. So there's a lot of different transitions that keep coming every like 6 months or so. And, you know, you get your shakeups from employees. We have to change around the structure or we bring on new people. There's always going to be growing pains. But eventually I do hope that like it levels out to where, okay, we've leveled out. We're not bringing on more new people. These people are getting to work. And that's when we'll start seeing things smooth out a lot better. And just hopefully that's coming sooner rather than later, which I have faith. Like I said, I've been through some rough times with this game, but I've stuck with it and I'm in it for the long haul. So I'm gonna be here, and yeah, I'm pretty sure it's gonna ride up sooner rather than later.
No, it makes a lot of sense. I mean, we've kind of spent a long time on this topic, but it's a huge kind of topic.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
we have quite a few more people than normal.
Sorry, I was just saying, I'm confident for 2024. That's fine, 2025 even. Certainly from I think the organized play perspective, like I think that's the thing they probably have a bit more ability to be agile about, right? And I do think Josh has a plan, and I think him and Levi, I have confidence that they will get it to work. Obviously, it remains to be seen. I think, yeah, for me, products wise, I think design mostly get it okay. There are outliers and things up and down, but I think mostly they're okay with it. I do think the product overload is an issue that I don't know how to solve from I guess a corporate perspective. I guess from their perspective, if they're still seeing that sales are great, then why would they change? But from a personal perspective, like even just things like don't do 4 challenger releases, right? Like just 4 booster sets is
Especially at the end of
fine.
a year, that's kind of a
Yeah.
drain.
And just intersperse with the odd singular, maybe a double in a very where you really have to do a double. But yeah, just that slight paring back of those ancillary things, I think, would reduce that product overload from my personal and my wallet's perspective.
The product thing is such a complicated thing to address though, because
Yeah.
there are people playing this game who want every IP and they want a chance to get their favorite one in there. And the challenger decks are the idea of challenger decks is a reasonable solution to make
Mhm.
sure they can include as wide of a net of IPs as possible. My question still ultimately comes down to whether or not the purpose of those products is being served, and that like are those products is casting that wide IP net actually bringing new players into the game? Because if it's not ultimately doing that, then I think there's a question of, well, are we just putting out products that people feel like they need to buy, but they're not actually, helping anyone or anything?
Yeah.
And that's where I'm hesitant to be like, well, I got to back off on that. I think what I would like to see is a redesign of the challenger deck, to be a product that is really, really, really suited to getting people into the game while still providing some exciting cards for people who are ingrained in the game and just wanted that IP to come out. And that's asking for something quite difficult to achieve. I understand, but the game itself is such a wild idea of a game where you're just going to mix IPs all the time into fighting game system and stuff that like if they really want to nail the game, it's going to take nailing some difficult products, I think,
Mhm.
to make it work, because currently again the competition is games like Union Arena where, well, I agree, Cam, I'd rather play Universes 10 times over a game of Union Arena once, for sure. It's a very simple, it's a very basic game, but it's a game that works really well if you see an IP that you like, to just go, oh, okay, I can play this. I can buy it. It's easy to learn. I buy it, and then I can just play Jujutsu Kaisen, and that's it. And I don't have any reason to buy things that I don't care about. They have to make these products make people want to buy products they don't care about. Like that's a salesman's worst nightmare, trying to figure out a product like that. And that's but if they can achieve it, that's how I think they're going to see success with the concept of universes, and they got to figure that out.
One product I will give them credit for are the Tekken decks. I think they're really well done as clash decks, as intro decks. I think the cards are interesting, and um, they're a nice learner product. There's nothing particularly complicated, but there's decisions. There's things where, as a newer player, you get that kind of those light bulb moments. Oh, if I do this in this order, then that thing works, but not overly complex. I think from a like I say, as a clash deck, I think they work really well. Um, so yeah, kudos on those. I think they were really done very, very well.
Can I just interject too? You reminded me that I would like the product names to be more descriptive of what the product is actually for. Also, I mean, this goes back to the clash decks for
I
Attack
think
on
that's
Titan
true.
being demo decks,
I
and
think they
and
are doing that for Critical Role, are they? I don't know, because I think Clash Deck's now called Starter Deck.
Yes.
good. I missed that. I missed that
Yeah.
bit.
Bo
Great.
and
Good. Props.
Bo and Percival are no longer Clash decks; they are branded as starter decks on them. And I think that's an absolutely
Oh, cool.
great choice
I missed
move.
that.
That basically makes it clear and for who these are going to be for.
Yeah.
Excellent.
An odd little sideways thing with the Battle for Humanity Clash decks. I actually didn't mind that the Clash decks were cards you found in the set. I just wish the characters would have been a little bit better, especially for like a newer player, because that means that ingrained players didn't need to pick them up like they would like the Toga 3 or Choco 4, and then the ingrained players are just scooping them up before newer players can get to them. If they're already cards that are already found in the set, you just leave those for newer players, maybe just make the characters a little bit better so the new players don't feel like they're just going to get bodied all over the place.
Mhm.
I think that was a really clever idea for introducing the starter decks with booster sets. Yeah,
Cam,
I actually enjoyed that. I thought that was really cool for your basic. Okay, you did the demo. Now you can have a starter deck, and you're still just kind of running, just maybe with some training wheels.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to tell people that too. I had one local who did pick up the game on Attack on Titan and bought those and really loved the experience learning with those decks. They liked that there were similar cards that they could see in either side, so they didn't have as many things to learn. And they did like the simplified character. They just thought it was a little easier to get into the game. But the problem was it was called a Clash deck. It needed to have a different, it was a different product. So a bunch of people bought this deck expecting something different because they were already ingrained players. And
Like
yeah,
to me, the
that was a miss.
easiest way of fixing those clash decks would have been just to put a second character in. You have the character you've
Mhm.
learned within the demo, and you
Yeah.
can play that demo character with your upgraded deck, and then you can move to your upgraded character who's basically the same thing but with a proper health total and a couple
Oh,
of
no.
enhancers on it.
We've got
Right.
Dan started on second characters in Clash and Challenger decks. We're going to be
Mm.
here for a while.
No, it's a good idea. It's a good
Yes,
idea.
it's-
They do that and then they call it an onboarding deck or a training deck. Call it a training deck. That's what it is. Yeah, you start with a one character and then you upgrade to the next one, and that's if they did that, that product would have worked so much better. But it was just a miss.
Or just like you have the blank demo cards in the training deck, and it's like step 1, play with this. Step 2, we're going to add 5 attacks and 8 foundations in, or 3 attacks, and then step 3, we're going to upgrade our character. Like, you have a little a training manual in your deck that says, we're going to upgrade some things and put some things in your deck, and we're going to take these things out, and you're going to gradually work your way through, and we're going to learn. We're going to put an action in your deck now. We're going to learn what that does. We're going to put an asset in. We're going to put some responses in. We're going to put, breaker into it, so you know what that does. A little book that just teaches you, and obviously you don't have to go to that granularity, but just teaches you a few things through those steps. That is an enhanced demo that you can purchase that teaches you those steps. And would work great as a two-player set, right? Would like the old Deku Bako one as a 2 people. We've had our demo, we like it. We're going to go away. We're going to learn this together through our Aaron, Armin, whoever.
2-player starter.
Yep.
Yeah.
But one of the good things that did come out this year was the tutorial on the app, and I think that's a great thing they could do with the tutorial on the app is to add the stuff on here. I never forget about that. Yeah, so it's one of the big things when I did the demo day in Wales, and when I'm talking with new players, I basically go to a demo, but also get the app, because then they can go at their own speed. They can learn when they need to. They can refer back to it. But if they had these kind of interactions, like you're saying, where okay, cool, this is a tutorial, or this is a tutorial on the full gameplay or taking a turn. This is just a tutorial on attacking. Take into account enhances, blitzes, other things like that. This is a tutorial on blocking, on speed reduction, on how to make an attack blockable, on breakers and what they mean.
This all sounds familiar.
And and if there was only someone they could work with who could quite easily direct them, and this is because it's great having you doing it, Cam, but at the same time, official support is always going to be great as well. As great as it is to
absolutely, and the only reason I started the Hermit School is because there was no official breakdown on like the website and stuff like that, or like official rules videos on their YouTube. That's the whole reason I started the Hermit School, was to break it down more simply for newer players.
Oh, someone's leaving the chat.
This game can be pretty complex if you break it down into the minutia. So it's just sometimes you need that little extra step. And when there didn't seem to be any official stuff on the website, especially when they made the new website, the third new website, I suppose, and there wasn't anything in the how to play other than, oh, here's just some basics of what like the card types are. I just felt that I should help out a little bit.
Yeah, you saw a gap and you took it. You jumped on it, and it's just one of those great things. One of the things I've said for the last few years, whenever talking to new players, is this game is very easy to learn, but very hard to master. At its core, it is just a play attacks, play blitzes and enhances and responses, and then let your attack go. It's the interactions and the way that cards bounce off each other that makes it very hard to master. And but the basics of this game is very easy to understand. It just gets very complicated, and the deeper into these levels you go.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you guys. Are we doing a part 2? Because we had 2 other categories that I'm sure we have a lot to talk about.
Yeah, it is quarter to midnight. I think a part 2 is probably best. I should have known we would have ranted on. I'm sure Ty would have absolutely loved to come back for part 2 as well.
We'll try and rearrange for a part 2 with everyone if we can find a time that works for everyone. Obviously, it's holiday season, so maybe people have time to work, or obviously have lots of time commitments.
If you guys are free next week, we can pick it up again next week. But I know that's very close to the holiday season, so
I'll make it work.
I will.
I should be able to. I just have to talk to some people.
I should be okay to do next Sunday. Yeah, should be fine.
So we'll be back next Sunday with hopefully Ty and maybe Tim if he's not raiding again.
He'll be raiding.
He'll be raiding.
He'll be raiding. And we've got 2 topics left to go over, which is innovation in the crowded market and product viability. And we'll probably spend a good 3 hours going over them as well.
Yeah.
Big thanks to Cameron and Dan for being here. Do you have any last words to go over before we depart for a week?
I don't have a lot to say. I've said plenty so far, so we'll just see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, last word should be at the end, and the end's not here. This is the intermission. So
exactly. I guess I'll just say thank you to everyone in chat for listening and chatting along. Obviously, if you're watching this part 1 on YouTube, hopefully part 2 will be up as well. And obviously, thanks very much for watching along on YouTube. Obviously, do all the things, and also go check out Cameron, aka UVS Hermit. Go check out Maindeck, and obviously go check out Ty's House Cards. Give them some love. Do all the stuff, and we'll see you back for the next one.
See you next week for the next one. And if you want some Nats practice, there's no better place to go than the Maindeck server and get some league practice in for Nats.
Our league, actually, my league manager just announced literally while we were doing this that the league starts tomorrow. So we got a new league. Join us on the Maindeck Discord server, maindeck.games. No, discord.maindeck.games. That's my URL. I couldn't remember what it is. Discord.maindeck.games. Join us there.
I mean, to plug it again, it's an amazing free-to-play league with amazing pricing, and I don't know how you make this physically possible, but the playmat themselves, the one I've got, is gorgeous.
I just lose money. That's all. It's really easy.
That makes a lot more sense. That's the business model of UK Versus as well. We just lose money in everything we do. It's great.
Yeah, it's fun.
So, for those watching on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button to be notified and check out all the little video. If you have got anything you need to learn about the game, go check out Hermit. And if you have any complaints about anything we've said on here and want your opinion to be heard, Richard's DMs are always open.
Yeah, they are. Feel free.
Not mine.
See you on the next one.
We'll catch you on it. Bye.
See you guys.
See you guys.